This microphone is on, but not hot.
Cool. I mean, they'll look at the language. That is exactly right. And I just feel like, I mean, I have done the same thing.
How are you? I was in trouble. How are you?
Assume everybody else is
Good morning. We're going to get started this morning with an invocation by Pastor John Malgett of Disciples First Christian Church of OKC, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Matt Hinkle. Please stand as you are able.
Let us pray. God of justice and joy, we pray this day for your wisdom and guidance to make the best decisions for this great city. May your justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. God of care and compassion, we pray for all those who live and work and visit our city. We pray for all those who put their lives on the line to make our lives better, for the men and women of the police, the fire, first responders and military, for doctors and nurses, for teachers and politicians. As they keep us safe, keep them safe from harm as they spend their lives protecting and serving and caring for our community. For they do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than themselves. They look not to their own interests, but to the interests of others. God of acceptance and awe, we pray that all of your children will find a place at your table, those with political power and those who have none, the housed and the unhoused, the rich and the poor, women and men, straight, lesbian, gay, trans, bi, and gender fluid, those of every and no faith, the atheist and the Jew, the Muslim and the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Sikh, and those who follow in the way of Jesus. May we always seek to clothe ourselves with compassion and kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. And above all else, may we clothe ourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. God of laughter and life, we pray for a city and a state, for a nation and a world where we will truly love all the people, no matter race or creed. We pray this in the name of the one who doesn't just suggest, but commands that we love one another, just as God loves us. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank you both. I call this meeting of the City Council to order, and we're at Office of the Mayor, where I do have a presentation, and I'll make my way to the front. All right, if our safety team, our risk management team could come forward. It is National Safety Month, and we would like to learn a little bit more about that, and so I would ask the clerk to read this proclamation.
Whereas each year, millions of Americans visit an emergency medical facility for unintentional workplace injuries. And whereas the goal of the National Safety Council is to raise public awareness and educate Americans about these alarming and often preventable injuries and mishaps. And whereas the National Safety Council, after spending decades advocating for workers' safety to eliminate the injury and possible untimely death of American workers, created National Safety Month in June 1996. And whereas through the support and observance of National Safety Month, employers can help reverse the increase in accidental injuries and deaths. And whereas the City of Oklahoma City supports national safety efforts and has taken a proactive stance in providing a safe and healthy work environment for its employees. And whereas the City of Oklahoma City has come to observe and acknowledge June as National Safety Month with a variety of safety training courses designed to enhance the employees' awareness of safety hazards in their workplace. And whereas the city's Risk Management Division will spearhead efforts throughout the month of June to educate and inform the city's employees for the purpose of promoting safety in all duties and tasks being completed. And whereas risk management works to assure the safety of all city employees by setting and recommending standards, providing training, and encouraging continual improvement in workplace safety and health. Now therefore, I, David Holt, Mayor of the City of Oklahoma City, do hereby proclaim June 2024 to be National Safety Month in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Well, the most important thing every single day here in this operation of 5,000 city employees is that everybody goes home safe. And the people charged with that are standing in front of you right now, and we are very grateful for their work, and we'd love to hear a few words from Levita Breath, the Director of Risk Management for the city.
Well, June is National Safety Month, and we have a great buffet of safety training for all city employees. We have, of course, our standard active threat done by the police department. We have Stop the Bleed done by our fire department, but we partnered with some of our outside vendors. We have the Department of Labor that's going to come and do some training sessions for us, as well as PT 360 to talk about ergonomics and our posture during work hours. But we also partnered with Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's right. Blue Cross and Blue Shield is coming to do some nutrition classes to make sure that we're eating the right things to fuel our work day. So really excited about all of the different training offerings that we have. Really want to encourage all city employees to sign up for multiple training classes. Our logo is Start Safe, Work Safe, Finish Safe, and I brought the safety team this year. Their schedules allowed. I want to say thank you to them for scheduling, coordinating, and facilitating a lot of the training that will be going on this month. We have Brandon Rupp, Darius Winston, which is our latest addition. He's only been with the city 2 weeks, and and Jason Arco. So they do a fabulous job at keeping the city safe.
All right. Well, let's hear it for our safety team. Okay, the remaining items on Office of the Mayor are appointments, items A, B, and C. We have appointments to Bond Advisory, the Housing Authority, and the Planning Commission. We could take those with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We have no items from council today, so we're at item 5, City Manager reports. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, we have the sales and use tax report is on today, and this is through May. You see that the sales tax is actually down 2.3% in May, which is not a good check, and we're disappointed in that number. Russell Evans, our economist, has told us that the second half of the year would be a lower growth rate, and we've kind of gone back and forth between different months, having a little bit of growth and a little bit of decline. It's caused us to be more conservative in our budget going into next year. I think really of note is that our sales tax was down 2.3%. We're about 1.4% growth for the year, which is behind what our target was. So we're about $3.4 million between sales and use tax below what our projection was. We've managed well within our budget this year with our expenditures, so we're okay in this year, but going into next year, it really does set a lower base for us going into next year. Our original target going into the budget, and Chris will talk about that when it comes up, Chris York will talk about that, but going into next year, we were projecting for 1.5% growth. Because of this change in the sales tax at the end would move us really to a projection of about 2% growth, which is really on the higher end of what Russell's range was that he had provided for us to expect for next year. And if you remember, for next year's budget, he had said, you know, you don't have to plan for recession, but be prepared if it does happen. And so I just think it's just a caution for us that it's slower growth. We don't have as many resources right now. We've got to be careful how we proceed. But we'll continue to monitor and come back. We do have preliminary numbers on June that shows a slight bit of growth, but doesn't really make a significant improvement in our numbers overall. And we'll bring that report back to you when we get our final numbers. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Item 6, Journal of Council Proceedings, items A and B. Can we take them with one motion? I have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 7, request for uncontested continuances. Item 11B is already on this agenda as withdrawn. Are there any other items, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, starting on page 14, item 11M1. This is on unsecured structures. All of these items will be stricken from the agenda, starting with item E, 919 North Virginia Avenue. The owner is removed. Item F, 720 Northwestern Avenue. The owner has secured. And item G, 104 Southeast 19th Street. The owner has secured. And then on page 16, abandoned buildings, item 11N1. Item D, 919 North Virginia Avenue. These are stricken from the agenda. The owner is removed. Item E, 720 Northwestern Avenue. The owner has secured. And that's all the items that I have.
All right, thank you. Item 8, revocable permits and events. We have item 8A. This is a revocable permit with the Riversport Foundation for the IGSBA Jet Ski Junior Nationals, July 26th through the 28th. We do have Tricia Downey, who is signed up to speak on this item and as well as the next one. I guess if you want to hit them both, you're welcome to.
Both, for sure. Good morning, my name is Tricia Downey. I'm the National Events Manager at Riversport. The International Jet Sports Boating Association will bring their national junior competition to the boathouse. This is the second year in a row they're doing it. The competition was so amazing for the group last year that they are back for more. Last year we had about 40 competitors. This year it's going to be over 70. 8 to 17-year-olds get on jet skis. They drop buoys in our river and head-to-head, 6 at a time or more plus, fly around. It is the most exciting race I've seen in that river, so it's going to be a good time. Last year's live stream really made a statement. They had a spectacular announcer and live interviews after the racers won. They get off the river and were face-to-face with all of the jet ski community right off the bat, so that was great. The start is by Finish Line Tower, and the speed and adventure of seeing them is a really good time. July 26th is the weather date for practice, and we invite everyone to watch Saturday and Sunday, July 27 and 28. About 9 o'clock start time, depending on the amount of competition and weather. We expect to finish by 5. Any questions on the jet ski?
No? You want to go ahead and talk about
Yes,
the next
sir,
one too?
rolling right
We'll
into it.
Vote after, but go ahead.
Sure. Mike, do you want to join me? I'm just asking our executive director, Mike Knopp, up if you have any questions that I can ask. But the staff here at Riversport and the executive staff at US Rowing is working diligently to make this the biggest spectacle for rowing sport in the United States. RoFest 2024 will take place July 12th through the 21st. Yes, 10 days of racing on that river. The 12th is a practice. The 13th and 16th, we have our under 17 and under 23 high school and college age competitors. They will roll in with all their boats, all their families, all their coaches, just an immense amount of people. And then the 17th is another practice day. The 18th will start our masters. Those are everyone not masterful, but over 24, and they are quite good at their jobs too. Most races will be 1,000 meters on the river. Some evenings, rowers will experience racing after the sun goes down because river sport has stadium lights, one of the only of its kind in the country. So it's very exciting for others to come here. In fact, some who have never been here, some groups who have never been here have signed up for this specific race because of its immense size and excitement. But that's not all. Community events are being planned, like, and this one is my favorite, trailer driving as an educational session. I know I've seen boats being not so well driven, and this is kind of a really neat, unique thing. But we are also hosting a floating film where we have a big screen and folks can sit on rafts and watch the show, or of course chairs on the patio. We have functional movement and strength classes. We have an oar board demonstration. An oar board is a stand-up paddle board, but you sit and it has a structure where you row on it. A college fair. And I know U.S. Rowing is planning meetups at local brew houses, restaurants, museums, the Cowboy Museum, the First Americans Museum, the Oklahoma City National Memorial Museum. We expect 15,000 to 20,000 people over the 10-day event. Most are from out of town. We do have local rowers, so can't count on those. But yes, most are from out of town. So if you need a hotel between July 12th and 21st, get it now, because we will be selling those out. And for more information, riversportokc.org will give you up-to-date details. And U.S. Rowing, again, they're still in planning stages. I know they have lots of sponsors involved, and we are just really excited to host this mammoth first event of its kind.
Great.
Do you have any questions?
I don't know. We'll take them both A and B on questions, and then when you're ready, Councilwoman Nice, we'll take motions on each.
Okay, I'll just say it does sound very mammoth, you know, so first question, will there be fireworks?
That's on the docket, yep.
Okay, so fireworks will happen at both of these events?
Not on the jet ski event.
Okay,
It's on, yes. let's
just
say
expect to
yes.
see one of those days.
The 22nd, June 22nd, our Stars and Stripes Regatta
We'll have fireworks.
have fireworks.
Okay, second question, since we have 10 days, will people be able to camp down in the area?
Camping is not allowed on public parks.
Okay.
And our leasehold is on a
Just need to
public
make sure
park.
people know that, to
Yes, ma'am.
understand what they can and can't
They
do.
bring their RVs, but then they bring them back to the campground, so
All right, so-
no overnight, sorry.
No problem. Sounds good. So I will move for A, and following, I will move for B, and this seems very exciting. So looking forward to celebrating this with you all.
Sorry, Mike, they don't have anything.
All right, we have a motion and a second for item 8A. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
And item B.
Got a motion and a second for item 8B. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope to see you there.
All right, item 8C is a joint revocable permit with the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust and the Bodies Race Company to hold a firecracker flight race at Lake Stanley Draper. Councilman Stone, Morgan Danker with City Parks is here, but only if anyone has any questions.
I don't really have any questions on it. It's the firecracker flight race, June 23rd, starts at 6 in the morning with timed 4 and 8 mile races on the Stanley Draper trails. So I think it'll be a fantastic event, and I'll move for its approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 8D is a joint revocable permit with the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust and Scuba Bros to hold a community volunteer event to remove litter, debris, and trash from the lake waters at Lake Hefner on June 9th. No one is signed to speak. We have multiple wards affected, and feel free to just jump in. 1, 2, and 8.
Sounds like a great event. I'll move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes when you're able. Passes unanimously. And finally, 8E is a revocable right-of-way use permit with the Plaza District Chamber of Commerce to hold Live on the Plaza on June 14th, July 12th, and August 9th. And we have Rachel Linhart here to catch us up on this summer event.
Good morning, City Council. I'm Rachel Linhart, and I'm the Executive Director of the Plaza District Chamber of Commerce and Plaza District Association. For those of you who have never been to Live on the Plaza, I suspect many of you have, it is a block party series that we do, and this is truly a lifeline of and a lot of economic support for our small businesses. Just over the last 10 years, we've grown from about 13 businesses in the Plaza District to we are now at 60 businesses in a small stretch. And what I'm asking for is your support, because our monthly block party tends to draw in a significant amount of people when the weather's nice. We are up for Pride on the Plaza soon. That event draws in anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people, depending on the size of the event. And we also do a summer block party, and we do Skate the Plaza in August, where we shut down 16th Street, have skate ramps, and there's really something for everybody. So I would ask for your support for a special events permit, and I would invite you all to come. If you would like to come, I would really love to have you at our Friends of the Plaza VIP area. What we have at the block party is a tremendous amount of arts and entertainment programming. We have kids' activities, bracelet making stations, face painting, Joe Coover magic. All of the businesses participate in having live entertainment or business specials. The restaurants do specials, and it's a lot of fun. We also work very intentionally with dozens of nonprofits and community partners. If there's someone that you think we should have at our event, please let me know, and we would love to reach out to them. I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hammond?
Excited for a summer of lots of fun, so I'm excited to move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Rachel. All right, we'll recess council and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority, where we have items A through G. Executive session is not requested for item F1. We could take these items with one motion.
I'd like to request executive session for item F1, please.
Okay, so we have a motion to go into executive session to discuss item F1. That would be a vote on item F2. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Fails 3-6. We're back on the items and under the OCMFA agenda, and we can take items A through G with one motion.
Separately on that item.
Sure.
Thank you.
So let's bring up a motion then for item F1. We have a motion and a second for item F1. I don't think that, Councilwoman Nice, did you move this item? I did, but it's okay. Okay. I'm sorry, you said you did not? I did not, but it's, okay. It's all right. All right. All right, there we go. All right, cast your votes on item F1. Passes 6-3. Now we're back on the remaining items, items A through E and G. We could take those with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Now we'll adjourn OCMFA and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, where we have items A and B, and item A has a brief presentation from the city manager.
Yes. So this is an amended lease with Prairie Surf Media for the use of the former Cox Convention Center site. Back in December of 2020, we entered into a lease agreement with them to operate what became Prairie Surf Studios, and they've done that for the last 3.5 years and have done an amazing job. They've been a great partner and proven Oklahoma City is a good market for the film industry. As we approved the development agreement with the Thunder for the development of the new arena, part of that agreement set forward first it named the site as being the former Cox Convention Center site, but then it also set forward a target date for completion of 2028. And we had said before that's a really aggressive schedule. We'd have to work very hard. There's a lot of things that have to fall in place. So we started having conversations with Prairie Surf about the opportunity for them to exit early, to give us the opportunity to start in this next year on the construction. So we start with demolition and site preparation in the beginning of 2025. And so we've been in negotiations and discussions with them. Basically what this does is, for the early termination, the city agrees to waive all of our rent and our utility and security fees, which equals about $675,000 for this calendar year. The contract's on a calendar year. So we agree to waive those fees for this year. And then Prairie Surf agrees to terminate the agreement December 31st of 2024 rather than December 31st of 2025, which is in the current lease. They do have an additional agreement with PBC Sports and Entertainment, which is an entity of the ownership group for the Thunder. They have a separate financial incentive agreement with them. This has been agreeable to all parties going forward, and so this allows for this early termination. I just want to say again, what a great partner that Prairie Surf has been, and we're so grateful for what they've done here. We look forward to working with them in the future with their future plans.
I would like to know what those future plans are. And as I said before, it's very unfortunate, as they have been a partner coming to the table in a time when we didn't have an occupant in this facility, that I don't hear any conversation about what we are doing to assist them in finding a new home. That's very concerning to me, for us to say how we support entities such as this, how they have been able to bring us some national and global attention in different ways. And now it's just like, okay, see you later, bye. Not necessarily in that order, but also the commitment. I'm still waiting to understand what that is on our part as a city, and especially with the fact that these are homegrown folks from our community, from our city, from our state, that took the initiative and the forward thinking of saying this is something we want to do. So personally, this is I say one of those near and dear projects, just because of how they approached us with their thoughtfulness of saying, this is what we're thinking, how can we be involved in what is coming and what we see greater for Oklahoma City? And the fact that if you look further within our agenda, we're about to vote on some projects that are about the film industry. And here we are now denying a very good partner, as you said, to be able to find a home that we are being intentional about as far as that process is concerned. So, I mean, it's frustrating when you think about those things, especially again when we have people who are I wouldn't say necessarily struggling, but there are companies and others who are struggling to even find their footing within our city footprint. And here we are now again saying, well, the Thunder takes precedence all the time, or a bigger entity takes precedence all the time. And here we are again with a terminating of an agreement such as this. So I just wanted to put those thoughts out there. I do want to say thank you to Rachel. I know she's no longer with Prairie Surf, but also Matt and all of the other partners, because this place that you all made a home for national folks to come in that even half of us didn't even know existed or would come to that facility. They helped to say that Oklahoma City is a place for film. Oklahoma City is a place for production. Oklahoma City is a place that is budding when it comes to us being able to look at a representation of ourselves, and the fact that with the work that they have done with our schools, I think that's the most important part. The partnership with our schools, and the fact that because of them and them highlighting one of our local high schools, Douglas High School, they were able to get an Emmy out of that. So I think a lot of us don't acknowledge and recognize the importance of the work that people do when they are trying to look at how they take care of all of our community. And again, now with us having these types of workforce developments that can help us bring more dollars and more production for our communities within our city. So I'll stop there, but I'm very troubled by the termination of this agreement so early and without hearing of what those next steps are.
Yeah, I know that Prairie Surf is still in plans for their future, of what their future is going to be. Our hope really, and this, first of all, is an agreement between the parties, so they've agreed to this, they're agreeable to this. It does provide the financial incentive in this year, as well as the financial incentive that the Thunder Ownership Group has provided to them, that our expectation is that helps them in that next step, in that next phase, and we're committed to continuing to work with them as they determine where they're headed and what they're going to do with that, to try to make sure they have the opportunity to continue to be successful here in Oklahoma City.
I would say this, last week I started making calls to look for alternative sites, and if anyone has any ideas, I'd love to hear them, because we're here to try to help.
Yep.
Okay. Well, based on those comments, Councilwoman Nice, would you like to vote on this item separately from item B?
Yes, please.
All right, so we'll pull up item A under the PPA agenda. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 7-2. That leaves us with item B, claims and payroll. We can take up a motion on that. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCPPA and reconvene as the council, where we're on item 9, the consent docket. We have presentations on AB, BJ, BL. Is there anything else that a council member wishes to pull out for comment?
You were going pretty fast. Please repeat.
Presentations on AB, BJ, and BL.
Okay, AQ,
Okay.
BO, BP, and BQ.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to also hear a bit more about item BI, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then. We'll take them in order, which means we'll start with the presentation on item AB.
If you can pull it up, then we'll run it. If you can. Amanda Carpenter, 522 Colcord Drive, on behalf of the city's trust, the Oklahoma City Industrial and Cultural Facility. The city's trust is the applicant today. While they get the presentation up and running, just starting that this is a request for annexation of a property that is 320 acres located at Gregory Road and Northwest 10th Street. This is a request for annexation of this property into Ward 3. On April 9th, the Oklahoma City Annexation Committee, which was chaired by Councilwoman Barbara Peck, also included Councilman Carter, Councilman Stone, and Councilman Stone-Cipher, voted to recommend the annexation go forward. On May 9th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the application and send it on to City Council. This is a map showing the property and where it's located. It is 320 acres. Its current use is agricultural and industrial. It was purchased with city funds back in December of 2023. The Oklahoma City Council and the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust allocated $10 million for the acquisition of a mega site. This is 320 of those 1,000 or more acres that would make up that mega site. To be clear, this property, which is sought for annexation, is 100% owned by the city's trust. It is also does not contain any residents, and nor has it had any residents on this property for many, many years. Currently, the property is unincorporated county property. Currently, if someone was seeking to do any development on this property, there are no regulations, there are no permitting requirements, so bringing it into Oklahoma City will create more safeguards and regulation for how this development continues forward. The property is only adjacent to the city of Oklahoma City. There are no other municipalities that are capable of annexing this property in. Per the Oklahoma City ordinances, if this property is annexed into Oklahoma City limits, it comes in as agricultural property. This is solely a request for annexation. This is not a zoning matter. That would be handled later once a user is identified. The property the picture on the left is a property picture standing on Reno looking north, and the picture on the right is a picture looking southwest standing on Northwest 10th Street. You'll see it's contiguous and flat, which makes it ideal for development of employment lands in a mega site. I talked about the other industrial uses on the property on the northwest corner of the subject property, which is the 320 acres we're asking to annex. There is a natural gas compression station. Also within the area of I-40, Cimarron Road to Reno to Banner, down to Northwest 23rd Street. In that small square, there are multiple industrial uses, which include C.E. Page Airport, a trucking company, as well as a chemical manufacturing and blending company. There's also oil and gas refinery and oil and gas storage facilities in that same area that I just described. This property is intended to be part of a mega site. A mega site, for purposes of our discussion, is employment land consisting of 1,000 acres or more. Oklahoma City is a growing market. It's been very appealing to the manufacturing and industrial development and businesses, partly because we have a great quality workforce. We have quality of life for our residents, which the council has provided through maps and other public services. We have a low cost of doing business in Oklahoma City. Our colleges, universities, VOTEX are able to provide specialized training, and we provide great amenities for Oklahoma City. That's why we're enticing and in a market that many businesses are looking at. However, we haven't had the land available for these markets or these businesses to come into. Since 2020, the Oklahoma City area has been a candidate for at least 9 different businesses seeking sites of 1,000 acres or more, but has not been able to provide such a site ready and available. This area is ideal because it is flat, it is contiguous, it's next to an interstate system, it's close to an airport, and it has a readily available workforce in the Oklahoma City metro. As Plan OKC has pointed out, there is a need for development of employment lands of 1,000 acres or more. This is both recognized in the OKC plan purpose and process, but also in their Strengthen OKC initiative. So it's consistent with the Oklahoma City plan. This type of development of employment lands would bring large-scale industrial and manufacturing. This means jobs. It is projected to create 2,500 to 7,500 jobs for the Oklahoma City metro area. These types of jobs have an average salary of $63,000, and this is bringing new-to-market businesses that the city of Oklahoma City and its metro area don't currently have. This would mean billions of dollars for capital investment plus supporting businesses, but it also increases other taxing entities like schools by increasing their tax base as well. So why annex this property? First, and most important, it meets all the statutory requirements. It is adjacent and contiguous to the city of Oklahoma City and only the city of Oklahoma City. Second, the city of Oklahoma City's public trust owns this property. We are 100% owner. There is no other entity that is required for approval or permission for this council to annex this property in. Oklahoma City, by annexing this property, would receive the full benefit of the development which city funds were used to pay for. And further, this will provide those development protections Bringing it in makes the Oklahoma City zoning code, the development code applicable to the future development of any sort of industrial and manufacturing site. Now, this does provide also a community benefit. There are some residents in this area that would see a benefit from increased utility capacities, increased road capacities, and as mentioned previously, the tax base for the schools, the Banner schools, would also be increased without increasing the head count, unlike if a residential development went in. You will also potentially see increased enhancements to C.E. Page. There's no intent to do away with it with the airport. In fact, if anything, you're going to see enhancements to that area. Now, this is about jobs, and to be clear, it's about economic development. And why do we do economic development? It's to create the jobs for individuals and families that will provide them with income, with great paying jobs, that creates the ability for them to stay in Oklahoma City, their kids to stay in Oklahoma City, to be educated in Oklahoma City. Good jobs reduce crime, increase tax base, increase tax dollars for police, fire, and trucks, or fire and parks. And further, it provides a better quality of life. To be clear, as part of the future development, it is understood that this area would be increased capacity, would need increased capacity for water, sewer, and roads. That is part of what would be presented to the Planning Commission as well as the council when development plans are established. Annexing now allows for the city, the chamber, and the alliance to begin that economic development process of promoting this area, bringing businesses in, developing what manufacturing industrial development might look like, and then we will come back to you with potential zoning or other development plans. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I also have with me Kenton Sudol, President of the Alliance, as well as the General Manager of the city's trust.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have quite a few. Well, maybe I do. As we talk about the area that this will serve, because this is unincorporated area, what school districts will this actually service?
So Banner Schools is the immediate school district, and since this is not residential development, we're not increasing the capacity that Banner Schools will see in terms of the number of students, but it will increase the tax base. Also, you will see potential development that for ancillary uses that could potentially be in other areas of Oklahoma City schools, Yukon schools, and Mustang schools.
Okay, Banner schools, I'm not familiar with, but I did hear Mustang and Yukon, which sounds, this actual area surrounds. So as far, and that's probably my only question. My issue with all of these things we're about to vote upon, I think it's important for us to realize as we talk about this in the frame of us about to also vote on our budget for the fiscal year of 2025. We were working to eliminate recreation for a different part of our community, but acquire a whole unincorporated area with $10 million. I have no idea how to make that make sense for my community. Also, as we look at incorporating extra miles in square acres and areas in roads are going to be improved when we still have roads in other areas that need so much improvement. And we also talk about how this will impact employment if we annex this, but where will these folks be staying? It looks like it would be around in those unincorporated areas or areas that are not necessarily exactly Oklahoma City. It would be outside boundaries where most folks would probably be able to find housing that is attainable and more accessible for them to be able to have within this part of our community. So for me, I know we voted on this in 2023, but the math is still not mathing. When we look at how $10 million for land but yet we're trying to balance the budget and cut the things that people need the most. This is insulting as we look at how this is impacting our communities that already exist and need the resources that we're just openly and freely giving to others.
So I just want to clarify one thing, that the funding that went to paying for this land was part of gold bonds under economic development, can only be used that way. It couldn't be used for parks and recreation for our general operating budget. So I do want to clarify that the funds that we put towards that is just for economic development.
That's correct.
And economic development can also go towards areas that surround parks and recreation.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, thank you. Item AQ, Councilwoman Nice, you wanted to speak to that?
I did. I just wanted, I don't know. Sorry. Oh, are you speaking on this?
Yes, ma'am.
That would be great. I know a lot of us are very excited within our part of our community. We've been waiting and anticipating this particular agreement. So if you can help us explain it, I'd love to hear so the community can hear about it as well.
Yes, ma'am. Chad Meisberger, GeoBond Program Manager. What we have here today is an extension of a street enhancement project from, well, actually just from Kelly Avenue back down to the Katy Trail to make that connection. Part of the program, the street enhancement includes sidewalks, sustaining sidewalks, ADA compliancy, other amenities, possibly trees, community engagement. We do have a new component in this one, which is that new enhanced community engagement. So it's an extra little piece on top of everything else that we do. And so we'll be reaching out with our engineer and seeing what we can come up with.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just want to point out that it was very important for us to ensure with this type of project that we had community involvement, but also a community that reflects how this will be seen and re-envisioned for this part of our community. So we're very grateful that we're able to finally put this in front of you all for us to officially start this work for this street enhancement. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? Thank you. So while I am existentially excited, in fact, about this, thank you for laughing at the use of that word. That's, yes, good for you. No, I'm excited about this project. I think it's long overdue. My follow-up, though, is the MAPS 4 sidewalk, bike, trail, and streetlight project. My recollection is we identified the Clara Looper corridor, as you're aware, for streetscape enhancements. And for those following at home who might not be familiar with streetscapes, think the recent revival of Paseo, right, or 39th Street LGBT District, or Plaza, as you heard earlier. Those sort of amenities. My intention when we crafted that particular item back in MAPS was always that I never envisioned Kelly being the stopping place. It really was to better connect across I-235. That was always the vision. It was the stated in public vision. It was my personal dream. It was like the people who worked on the project with us, planning, and residents helped us craft MAPS 4's item there with the sidewalk, bike, trails, and streetlights. So are you all anticipating already then partnering, I'm hoping, with MAPS to go from Kelly under I-235 to make that at the very least, a better pedestrian connection? And again, the impetus for that connection, we knew that there were funds out there that were already going to head toward a streetscape on 23rd, but we were to understand they were quite limited, and so that's why we incorporated them into MAPS 4. But remember, Better Street, Safer City, I know, Chad, you know this, but a lot of the public don't, so I'm saying this. But Better Street, Safer City, the 2017 bond funds a streetscape for Uptown on 23rd, right? And so the vision, the grand vision, right, is that from about I-35, the Katy Trails, to I-235 connecting into the Uptown district, this would become a completely walkable corridor, a pedestrian-friendly corridor. And with that, you talk about economic development earlier. that's the whole history of that area, was that it was once upon a time before white flight, right? A place where people walked, they got appliances. They purchased whole appliances. They purchased whole houses. So I'm trying to take us back to the mom and pop days, and I know a lot of community members in the area are with me. So are we already thinking about that Maps 4 connectivity?
Yes, sir. We're working with the Maps 4 board or group to go ahead and see where we can connect and where that overlapping is with the Claire Looper area. So
And you were actually, you got ahead of me, because my next item that I pulled up also incorporates that, because BO is talking about that 23rd Street between Grand and Miramar as far as the decrease of funding. Understanding right now, I'm assuming from the language that I read in the memo, that we weren't able to acquire some of the area for that to connect. So from that part to the end of the Clear Looper corridor of I-35, I am also concerned about how we're going to connect that, as well as how we work with that Katy Trail to make sure it also is connected within our inner system. So there's a few things working in that particular area of 23rd Street as well.
Thank you for that clarification. And again, I also just bring it up in a public setting because, I mean, I think I-235 is going to present quite the infrastructure challenge underneath. And so I just want everyone prepared for what kind of funding and, you know, what that's going to be. And so I also mention it at this juncture because we're heading into the bond for next year. And I don't know what shortcomings in terms of funding might exist. So I'm trying to plot ahead with you all and anticipating making sure that this corridor, you know, meets the economic and community needs that people have been asking me about.
yeah, it's been about 20 years since ODOT came through from that section of just by I-35 or 235 working their way back. So there is some remnants that's good, but some that'll need to be addressed to meet the ADA compliance.
Okay. Well, I'll look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cooper, you want to talk about item BI?
I don't want to talk about item BI. I'd like to learn more about item BI, Mayor. Thank you, though.
Good morning, Joanna McSpadden with the Finance Department. So item BI is an amendment to our operating agreement with the Alliance. They are managing our ARPA funds supporting small business programs. So we have about $196,000 that's going to be added to program funding to provide actual support for small businesses. And then we've got $155,000 that we're utilizing existing earned interest funds to continue management of these programs past 2024. So the original agreement expired the end of this year, but we know that we're going to have some residual work to be done. The hope is that those programs are mostly finished by then, but there's reporting and other things that we're going to need to have done over the next 2 years, and so this extends it through 2026. And lastly, it allows us to apply additional earned interest to programs. So any additional earned interest on those funds would be applied to programs as approved by the city manager's office.
City manager, and forgive me, Mayor, I got ahead of myself. I do have a comment. You were right. Okay. Thank you for that. So we have the working group with the community benefits agreement and looking at the workforce component of that. I would really like for maybe the folk who were involved with the administering of the CARES Act dollars as it related to those sort of programs to maybe visit with our working group. I know Amy Madera, who's chairing that process, has been asking like who should be speaking. We know the chamber's going to come speak with us. Lee Copeland, for instance. We know that some folk from Milwaukee, Positive Tomorrows, et cetera. But I think that it would really be useful to have folk from you all's arena, because I don't want to necessarily reinvent the wheel. I really want to draw on what you, especially during such a traumatic time. So people, I don't know who else you would recommend, but I feel like Jenny Bass-Carl, for instance, someone on my mind. But
sure,
I want to learn what are the programs out there we need to be tapping into? I know already the Commerce Department has talked to us about apprenticeship funding, so I want to try and connect some dots.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think it's important for what we have been targeting as far as some of those businesses are like technical assistance and other things like that. So it may be similar, but it may not be similar to what you're asking.
Now we have a presentation on item BJ. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, so Joanna McSpadden, our Economic Development Manager, will introduce this item, and then Maureen Heffernan will talk about the project.
Yeah, so I'll bring Maureen up here in just a moment. I just wanted to let you all know this is an allocation from TIF 8 funds for $3 million. We're actually allocating this to the city because the city will manage the project at Marriott Gardens. And so I just kind of wanted to point that out. So Maureen will come up and talk about the project.
Good morning. This is a request for funding so we can combat extreme heat within the Crystal Bridge. And since we reopened in late '22, the investment of nearly $11 million has really paid off. We've almost doubled attendance. We expect to hit about $1 million in ticket sales, which really helps offset our operating costs. And it really helps us achieve our goal, especially within the next fiscal year, of getting closer to providing more than 60% of our operating budget through earned revenue and private donations. So the city's share will go down to almost 1/3. So that's our goal, and this project is really helping us do that. But the last part of the project that it really needs to be successful for the next generation is a chilled water system. So the temperatures in there are moderate and comfortable for all the people visiting. We'd like to get about 75 degrees on a hot day like today on the first level, 80 degrees on our second, and hopefully no more than 90 on the third level. You can see from the numbers there, our highest record keeping that we keep track of the temperatures was 125 on the third level, the skywalk. So pretty uncomfortable, as it will be today, on a day like today. So a chilled water system will get water to the bridge. In the next slide, and the next one, you can see how it will work. So the blue line is where the chilled water coming from Vicinity Company was created when they built the Devon Towers. So it's already there, which is very, very helpful. So the blue line already exists where the chilled water will come in, and the yellow line is where they will trench and bring a pipe in from there. They'll get it to be within, I think, 8 feet or so of the Crystal Bridge, and then we will make that connection into the Crystal Bridge. And if things keep progressing, we could hopefully have that installed by April or May at the latest of next year. So we'd have a fully comfortable environment for people to visit next year with this, if this can pass today.
All right.
Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, next up is a presentation on item BL.
Yeah, Kenton Soodle, the president of the Alliance for Economic Development for Oklahoma City, will make a presentation on this proposed TIF project.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Kenton Soodle, the Alliance. This is the beginning, the final steps of the creation of the Classen Corridor TIF District. Just as a reminder, this item would introduce the ordinance and set the final hearing for June 18th. As a reminder, City Council took action back in March 12th to create the TIF Review Committee to consider this. We met with the TIF Review Committee on May 2nd, and they unanimously recommended this to move forward. It also, per state statute, went to the Planning Commission on May 9th, unanimously recommended also they take a look at it to make sure it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. So we've done a presentation on this before, but I did want to take you through the legal points that we need to make publicly on why this TIF is legal and why it was created and some of the objectives and things that we're trying to do. So the ordinance adopts the project plan, which is kind of like the constitution for the TIF district. And really, it sets out several different things, and that's attached in the item, but we're going to go through a few of the main ones. And so the project plan objectives really to promote economic development in this area, improve sales tax revenues, property values, create new jobs. Another point that's important for this area is that it would help us preserve and rehabilitate historic structures and landmarks. We've got a couple of those in the Gold Dome and the old Roosevelt School, the school admin building. It would also encourage transit-oriented development along the BRT line, and it would prioritize affordable housing. And all these are things that tie into different elements of the city's comprehensive plan. In terms of eligibility, just very quickly, so the Local Development Act is what lays out the ability to do TIF districts, and there's several things that we have to do to make sure that the area is eligible. There's a couple different ways an area can qualify, and we just wanted to point out that there's two that this qualifies under the statute. One's an enterprise area, so the state designates enterprise zones, and all of this is covered by an enterprise zone or a grandfathered enterprise zone. So these are areas that are designated by the state where there's declining population or lower per capita income or higher poverty rate, and it's areas where there's different tax incentives available at the state level. And so we qualify under that. We also qualify as a reinvestment area, which has a lot of different criteria that can qualify an area for that, but it's a couple of things that we pointed out was when we've looked at these properties, the property value growth here has been slower than the rest of the city. And one of the interesting things in the law that you can look at that helps qualify an area is if 50% of the properties are more than 35 years old. And so looking at this area, 53 are more than 100 years old. So there's some very old properties in this area. There's a couple things just to point out. There's some limits to TIF. You have to look at your total net assessed value for the city. You have to look at the school district that it affects, which this would be Oklahoma City Schools. You have to look at the land area, and there are these limits. So looking at this in concert with all the other TIFs that we have, just assuring you that we're well under all of those limits. And then you're also supposed to look at some appropriateness of the plan, and there's some things laid out there that, we do need some TIF assistance for investment in the area. It's not going to supplant normal city functions. We could use this in conjunction with other city programs. So these are all things that are in with the state statute. So we just wanted to point that out publicly that, this qualifies. One of the things that we do have to do, and that's part of when you appointed that TIF review committee, that's the committee made up of all the other taxing jurisdictions. That's part of what we have to go through and assess with them, what are the impacts to them? And we've looked at that, and there's also a financial impact report in the packet as well. That, we believe that the benefits of this TIF would outweigh any impacts, and that the impacts really to all of those other jurisdictions are pretty incremental and small. And we've also included a budget category to be able to potentially do projects if there are funds available for some of the other taxing jurisdictions. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But one of the things that we do is we have to look at sort of all the different types of properties that were included and make an estimate of what sort of taxes might be generated, incremental taxes. And so that's where we've included kind of looking at some information. There's probably a range of depending on the timing and how things develop. So, our best estimates is it could generate somewhere between an additional $46 and $74 million of ad valorem tax. So that's something we have to do in the financial impacts piece. And that helps us with the next slide, which we sort of chose a dollar amount in the middle to set the budget. Again, want to point out this is just a budget. There's no money in the TIF today, but once we start collecting this and turn the TIF on, over the next 25 years, we would start collecting the incremental taxes. So what we're proposing the budget be is really 50 million of it goes towards assisting projects. We wanted to specifically call out at least 10 million of that being for affordable housing. Now, that doesn't preclude that all of that could go towards affordable housing, but we want to be very intentional in spelling that out. I know that was something that was very important to some of the community members we met with. And to kind of put that in perspective, that would be potentially as big as the entire GOLT bond issue that we did in 2017. And then public improvements and development, we wanted to budget 10 million. That's where we could use that for things like streetscapes or other public improvements, and other taxing jurisdictions, 8 million. So again, this is kind of our initial budget, pointing out we're trying to project what this might generate over the next 25 years. So we're probably going to be wrong, but this is where, as we normally do, we go, and as we're going along, we can come back and amend budgets. So finally, just pointing out again the map as a reminder, the purple or magenta line outline, that's the project area. That's where money can be spent, and that, generally speaking, it's a little bit of an odd area, and these things can also be amended. We worked with the planning department to come up with this. Again, this is our best estimate of where the funds should be spent, et cetera. It's generally Northwest 36 on the north, Northwest 6 on the south, as far as Penn on the west, as far as Robinson on the east, but you can see it's a jagged line, so you kind of have to get the map out. And then the increment areas we're proposing, these are the actual properties where the taxes would be set aside into the TIF fund. We took, again, I think I mentioned this before, but we did a more surgical approach on this TIF and working with the planning department and identifying individual parcels as opposed to a big wide swath of properties like we've done in others, and really tried to grab properties that were undeveloped or underdeveloped. About 20% of these are publicly owned, so not generating any taxes. So just to put it in perspective, again, as a reminder, I think this is about 300-ish parcels. They're only generating about $1.2 million of property tax. So you kind of do the math, it's a little over $4,000 per parcel. So, and these are generally commercial parcels, so basically not generating a whole lot. So the increment districts we propose really divide these up into 4, and we kind of tried to separate the areas that are kind of a little bit similar in character, so that, just giving us the opportunity to kind of activate areas on different timelines. So the green is really kind of from 34th to 16th, really kind of along, our Asian District Cultural Association properties that we worked with them to identify. The little bitty gold one in there is the Gold Dome. We wanted to be able to activate that separately as we work to try to figure out how to save that property. The blue is really mostly on Northwest 10th Street. The city owns most of that property, and we're currently having discussions about how we can get that redeveloped. It also includes the school admin building, which currently has a redevelopment agreement being negotiated on it, I'm happy to say. And then the red is really the midtown properties that are kind of around the BRT line as it comes in, turns and comes into midtown. So very quickly on the timeline, we've already had some community meetings. We've already had I mentioned earlier, the TIF Review Committee meeting and the Planning Commission meeting. So again, this would be introduction today, set it for final hearing on the 18th. It would be, if adopted on the 18th, it would be, 30 days, it would be active. So at that point, we would still in the future have to bring an item back to actually activate these increment districts. And, I'm happy to say we've already got some activity and people are starting to think about this and talk to us. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nice, you wanted to speak to item BO?
Yes, I saw that change order for the decrease, which we kind of mentioned earlier, so I'm just curious how we will continue to work to connect this part of the Katy Trail to our trail system.
David Todd, MAPS Program Manager. Yes, we are struggling with some issues on that project, and as was mentioned earlier, we're going to continue to coordinate with not only the Public Works project, but the projects that MAPS has there, and rethink that connection, because we're not able to get the property on the north side that it was designed for, and we're going to have to rethink a connection possibly on the south side.
Okay, do we have maybe a timeline when we'll be able to?
I don't, and I need to work with Chad and Public Works more and kind of true up that timing, but I can get you that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And item BP, Councilwoman Nice?
Yes, I brought these, actually BP and BQ are pretty much aligned together in my question. Understanding, I know this is a memorandum of understanding for both, but I know as we're looking at our other recreation centers that we're trying to continue to activate and reactivate, if we're able to look at creating some type of way to incorporate possibly Menace Lakeview into these conversations as well, and what that looks like and that timeline for it.
Sure. Melinda McMillan Miller, Director of Parks and Recreation. Yes, so BP and BQ are also very similar, both since they work with the City County Health Department. The exact locations of the total wellness program for the children, the after-school program, that's still to be determined on which recreation centers, community centers that applies to. For example, Pitts Community Center has a very large after-school program where a lot of children are there. That's obviously one of our targets. With regards to Menace, as we're working with the community on this committee to determine all the different programming available at Menace moving forward, I know that committee, we've had 6 people express interest in participating in that committee. That committee is actually being called today to see if they can get schedules coordinated to try and get a meeting set up for next week to get the group together. So phone calls are going out today and tomorrow, try and get that coordinated. So based on community feedback, if that's an interest of theirs, then it's certainly something we'll look at with community or with the City County Health Department.
Okay, thank you. And I know I have more than 6 people from that community here, and I'm pretty sure that they would all be willing to participate. I'm looking at them.
Yeah.
They would all be willing to participate in that conversation.
Yeah, so we had asked them to contact lisa.hubble@okc.gov. The people who have responded, I have 6 people responded, as well as another person who just responded yesterday about they're going to participate. So if anyone's still interested in participating that has not formally reached out to Lisa Hubble, please do so and we'll get them on the list.
Thank you. Or if you all want to reach out to me, we'll figure out how to make sure you all are able to get that information and get engaged in that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes all the items that had been pulled out on the consent docket. We can now take a motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 10, the concurrence docket. We have items A through G we could take with one motion. A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11, items requiring separate votes. Item 11A is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 1301 Northeast 30th from R1 and H&O to R4 and H&O. This was deferred from May 21st. Councilwoman Nice, no one has signed up to speak.
Yes, was able to visit with the applicant as well as the developer, so I will move for approval and ask that we also move this with an emergency.
All right. We have a motion and a second on adoption. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously, and then we'll need to bring up a separate motion on the emergency. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item B was previously withdrawn, which brings us to item C. This is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 11100 North I-35 Service Road from PUD 701 to PUD 2000. Councilwoman Nice, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you. I will say this is an exciting project that we will see in this part of our community. And I know we'll be looking for applicants as far as those who want to work very soon. So with that, I will move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11D is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval, rezoning 4 East Reno Avenue from PUD 692 SPUD 1326 and downtown parking overlay in downtown scenic highway area to SPUD 1613 and downtown parking overlay in downtown scenic highway area. Councilwoman Nice, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you. This is the moment we have all been waiting for,
It has arrived.
to see how tall we can get.
1,907 feet. Mark Sitzow, Johnson & Associates, address is 1 East Sheridan. With me today is the developer and the project team to answer any other questions. 3 years ago, we brought forth a SPUD to get the zoning approved for the project to start. Since then, a lot has changed. The vision's become much larger and the project's become much more exciting. And so with that, that required us rezoning to remove the height restriction that was placed in that original SPUD. So the SPUD before you is identical except in 2 ways. The signage language has been removed and replaced with what will become the most detailed sign package that needs to be submitted that the city's probably ever seen, that the Planning Commission will ultimately approve. There's no billboards permitted, there's no non-accessory signs permitted, but what we will have to do is resubmit an entire sign package that shows every sign on the project and the LED lighting with visuals from every direction on what the proposed impacts would be. That has a public notice with it, and that'll go back before Planning Commission at a later date. The other change was removing the height restriction, which brings that in line with the rest of downtown, which does not have a height restriction. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but we would ask for your approval.
Come on, y'all don't have questions? Okay. I will say this first. Thank you all, because I did, and you all, I've expressed this before, even yesterday morning. I did have some unease with us looking at the sign requirement with the last conversation we had about signs that went pretty lengthy, and we were told that we wouldn't see anything further pertaining to signs, but yet we did. So grateful that you all said, we'll scratch that and we'll bring it back. So this is strictly for us to look at the height as he talked about. People have asked me often, what do you think about this development? I mean, sky's the limit, no pun intended. But when you look at the ways that this is our entertainment district, for us to be able to see how we can improve the ways that we create tourism and attraction to our city. I think most of us would say we are in agreement with how we do that. So with that, I haven't really seen any, I can't recall if we've received any feedback for this not to happen. I know some folks are a little nervous to see how this could be built, but other than that, I've heard most people say they're okay with this and want to see it. So pertaining to what is presented in front of us, and I know they'll still have to go in front of other restrictions and requirements as far as this height is concerned, I will go ahead and move for approval of this application.
Councilwoman Nice, if you don't mind, I did think of one question.
Okay.
What's your construction schedule for the 1,907 feet building?
So that's phase 2. I think Rob or Scott can answer the full construction schedule, but that is the second piece of the development. The piece that fronts Reno will be phase 1.
Good morning, Rob Udetti with AO. For the second phase, the hope would be to start in a couple years, and it'd probably take about 3 years to build the second phase of that project. So the hope is to actually start construction on the underground and basement or below grade parking as soon as possible, and then move into the 3 towers, and then the 4th tower would come later. So probably 5 years for it to come online.
So it sounds like it would be aligned with the arena.
Pretty close to it. That's where I was doing the math in my head too, so thank you.
I do have a comment. So when this item arrived at council previously for economic development funds, I was one of the council members who said no. And I did so at that time because the commitment to do not just workforce affordable housing within this project, but to pair people who would find themselves housed in these towers, that the developer said they were going to also pair those folk with case managers, which is a best practice in getting people out of homelessness and stabilizing them. I see you're shaking your head. Now, unfortunately, when I was looking at the website for, I believe it's Aspiring a New Generation, which is the nonprofit that you all are working with to do that sort of work. If you were to go right now, as I just did, and go to that website, nothing's clickable. Like, you can't click, for instance, like if you were to go, okay, I want to look at the staff, that's not something that you can do. It's not a clickable link. And I just worry that the commitment that you all have made is not going to find itself fulfilled. And there is nothing in that previous TIF that required you all to do that. Aspiring a New Generation is what it's called. And as I pull it up, I want to be very specific. If you try and click on our history, nothing. Try and click on our staff, nothing. Try and click on our partners, nothing. Even when you accept the cookies, get involved, our impact, about aspiring a new generation. So that does not inspire confidence in me then, and it doesn't inspire confidence in me now, as you all are proposing to build one of the tallest, if not the tallest, buildings in the country. And what was also unfortunate is my students were asking about examples of TIFs a couple weeks ago when I was trying to get them involved in the class in TIF. And they asked me why I voted against the previous vote. And I pulled up the non-doc article and I clicked on this link. I didn't know that these things weren't clickable. And it was embarrassing to me that's what's going on here, that happened in front of college students. And so when I followed this conversation about you all trying to inspire confidence in building one of the tallest towers in the country, you kind of let me down there in front of students who were excited about that. I don't know. And again, I love density. I love downtowns so much, and since I was a toddler. I'm excited about the growth of this city, but I can't overlook something like this. So prove us wrong, prove me wrong, prove those kids wrong, because we have an affordable housing crisis in this city. And the fact that you all made the overture to have some affordable housing units, and that you made the overture that the people you would be housing in there would have access to stabilizing resources, and that you made the overture saying that you have aspiring a new generation that would be helping you with that, but then there's just nothing here that inspires any sort of confidence toward that effort. If anyone's in the media, that you should go look at this website right now. I'm not making this up. So I'm not asking for a response. I just need everyone to know why I will not be joining in support of this.
Can you, let's go backwards. Can you give us some set where we were and how we got here? So at least folks understand, because we've already been through a phase of this. So I think it's important for us to really understand what this particular vote is for today.
Sure. So this vote is specifically for the SPUD that seeks to remove the height requirement. When this project started 3 years ago, a new SPUD was filed for this property that set forth certain requirements and certain allowances for what was three buildings and underground parking. Since then, the developer reworked some things, new architecture team became engaged, and they came up with a new site plan. In that time period, I know there was TIF discussions and other presentations. Our office was not involved. We brought forth this application just for the zoning. So the vote today, really at this point, is simply removing the height restriction from the prior SPUD. That's the only thing in this application.
You asked if that changed my mind. No, because you're going up, but we're trying to take care of folk on the ground, and I'm not inspired that we have I don't have the confidence, is what I'm saying. So, but hey, I wish you well, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, we had a motion, which we can now implement virtually. There we go. We got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 8-1.
Thank you.
All right, item 11E is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval, establishing a special permit to operate use unit 8250.15, moderate impact institutional in the I-1 district found at 4149 Highline Boulevard. Councilwoman Peck, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
And I'll just say while everyone's voting, I'm really excited to see use of some vacant properties adjacent to the Meridian Corridor, where it is my personal pet project to improve. So, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Item 11F is an ordinance on final hearing, recommended for approval, closing a portion of Northwest 90th Street right-of-way between blocks 45 and 46 of Britton Heights, near Western and Northwest 89th. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak. We're on your item, Councilman.
Sorry, I was excited about Meridian. I'm so sorry. Come on, no applicants here though? Come on
not
down.
that signed up.
Tell us what you got for us.
Not quite 2,000 feet. Box 522 Colcord Drive. This is a closing action for right-of-way that my client owns both sides. It's simply to consolidate the property to allow us to develop that. It dead ends to a railway, so there's no hope that there be any sort of traversing with this right-of-way to the other side.
Okay, well, I'm sorry we disappointed you about the 2,000, but thank you very much for your context, and I would move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes on item F. Passes unanimously. Item G, ordinance on final hearing, recommended for approval, closing a 20-foot north-south public utility easement within Shadow Lake Village, Section 7, near Penn and Southwest 104th. Councilman Hinkle, no one has signed up to speak.
I'll move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, item H and I are related. Item H1 is a public hearing regarding the Capitol Hill Business Improvement District. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak under this public hearing?
No, they haven't.
They have not, and so we have the resolution found at H2 adopting and confirming an assessment roll for year 2024-2025 for the Capitol Hill Business Improvement District. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And item I is an ordinance on final hearing adopting and setting the assessment roll for year 2024-2025 for the Capitol Hill Business Improvement District. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item J is an ordinance to be introduced today, set for a public hearing on June 18th and a final hearing on July 2nd, relating to our zoning and planning code, and we have a presentation.
Yes.
Katie Friddle is here and will present this item. This is related to the sign code changes that we made, and there were just some inadvertent impacts from that we wanted to make sure that we address and correct. And so I'll let Katie make a presentation of that.
Hello, I'm Katie Friddle. I'm Principal Planner in Current Planning and Urban Design in the Planning Department. And we have maybe one of the shortest ordinance amendments you all have seen in a while before you. This is to tweak some language that we skipped over with the recent more comprehensive update to the sign code. This is specific to the area immediately surrounding the Oklahoma City National Memorial. It has, since the creation of the Downtown Design Review Committee, it has included some limitations and prohibitions on the types of signage that was allowed to preserve the sanctity of that area. So we are just cleaning up some language to be consistent with the recently adopted sign code and to address some sign types that the sign code loosened up restrictions on, so that that area will retain that protection. Happy to answer any questions.
All right.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. All right, so we can take a motion to introduce the ordinance today. I have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. That ordinance proposal is now set for public hearing on June 18th and final hearing July 2nd. Item K1 is the public hearing regarding the dilapidated structure listed here in an HP landmark district at 2522 North Chartel. This was deferred from May 21st, and we do in fact have David Box and Tim Johnson signed up here to speak.
That's great. If they wouldn't mind, in whichever order, and then I'm actually going to invite Chad Davidson and Katie Friddle to speak as well. Thank you.
Morning, Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates. We're actually here to support the city's effort. This building was inspected by my firm and determined to be, in fact, dilapidated to the point that we fear that it is a public safety hazard. There had been a study done prior to us doing our inspection where they had to come in and actually support the first floor to allow any ladders or any equipment to be brought in. The floor was in such bad condition. The foundation is in bad shape, and we believe that it needs to be torn down to the foundation to be repaired. And looking at those economics, it just doesn't work for a developer. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have the images that we could show? I don't know how many people, I know Councilman Cooper is, but how many people are familiar if they've driven by this? But my client spent several years attempting to find a way to make this work. Simply put, the economics don't work. I got brought on board after he had already hired an engineer. The first structural engineer came to the same conclusion that Mr. Johnson did, but with my familiarity with Mr. Johnson and his ability to look at these and come to a conclusion, I wanted to hire Tim. So Tim independently went and reviewed it, came up with a report that was submitted that I believe should be a part of the city's file. But the ordinance in Oklahoma City deals with structures when they should be, in fact, demolished when they are zoned either HL or HP. So I want to read the conclusion paragraph to Mr. Johnson's report. The building is unsafe and dangerous in its present condition as a result of decades of deterioration and damage from neglect. It is the opinion of the undersigned that these structures should not be inhabited and pose a significant health risk to any public user, be it authorized or non-authorized. The structure is a high risk to the tenants and neighbors in the area. Further, the structures are in such a state of decay and ruin that they pose an imminent threat to the public health or safety. Due to the significant deterioration of key foundational and structural components, demolition of the structure is the only means of alleviating the imminent threat to the public health and safety. That is a conclusion from a structural engineer. As bad as the outside looks, I would encourage you, if you wanted to, go look at the inside. It's even worse. There's simply no way to save this structure. So again, we're here to support the city's application to declare this dilapidated.
Thank you. Chad, hi. Would you mind walking us through how this item came to exist on our agenda.
Well, basically received a request from the public to go look at this. When we initially looked at the property, it was unsecured. But as always, whenever we come out to a property or go to a property, if we see that the property is in worse condition, then we're going to bring it for that type of complaint. This property has been neglected. I was an inspector in this area probably 20 years ago, and this property had a lot of issues at that time, and then continued neglect and folks just not keeping up with the maintenance on it is how we get here. As Mr. Brock said, we were able to tour the building, the outside, the inside. As bad as it does look on the outside, the inside may be worse. It's pretty rough inside there. It's got a hole in the roof as well that's really kind of difficult to see. But we had this as a complaint from the community.
To clarify, the community reached out, you received a complaint from the public.
Through the Action Center, that's
through
correct.
the Action Center.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify that because as if I were in junior high, I received a call yesterday where somebody said there was a rumor going around that I, the council person of Ward 2, had requested the demolition of this building. What say you, Chad?
That's not true. It's just simply not true. Councilman Cooper has been very instrumental in working with both the property owner, the neighborhood, and some preservationists. He attended our meeting at the site and went inside with us as well. And then 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, had a little meeting with the community from the preservationists, the folks that live in the community, and the owner of the property, Mr. Johnson, was in attendance there as well. And we all just kind of sat together and tried to figure out ways how to make it work. And he's been very instrumental in trying to save this building.
You know, I'm 42 now, so my hearing isn't what it used to be. But I think I heard you correctly, but I'll just rewind that video later if I need confirmation on what you just said. Rumors are for middle school, and I say that as a former middle school teacher, just to be clear. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Box, can I ask a question? Sure. Thank you. When did your client acquire this property? Do you know the year?
I don't know the year, but it was several years ago.
Can you give us a ballpark?
21? 21.
And because that's another thing that I've been hearing is there's this belief amongst some residents that the property owner sat deliberately on this property to let it fall into a state of disrepair for no other reason than to demolish it. Look, I'm in term 2 now, so I'm just telling you how it is, right? And that is what some residents are saying, is that was the plan all along from this person, who I know is Micah. Did I just hear you, however, correctly, Chad? You said how long has this property been on your radar in a state of disrepair?
It had some issues 20 years ago, like I said, when I first started as an inspector with the city.
20 years ago, and Micah purchased it in 2021. What would you say the condition of this property was in 2021?
It's probably the same. I can't see it being a lot different than this.
Okay. So, you know, I think sometimes people forget about me that I teach English composition and argument. I read, I listen. I know you all like to talk about me as a talker, but I listen very well, actively. I do my homework like any good teacher and student. So I wanted on the public record right here for everybody, the context and backstory, okay? So anyone has any questions, y'all can just rewind it and listen again. What I am gonna ask for though, and I've already spoken with Mr. Box about this, and council, if you'll just hear me out here, I do wanna hold off for just a couple weeks, because my very specific ask, and Katie Friddle, there are some neighbors who believe that this property would qualify for, since it's on the National Registry, for tax credits. And so, yeah, if I can hear from Katie, if you can kind of tell us a little bit about that process, and then Tim, so it's like Mark can tell us a little bit about that. Because I'm willing to give a couple, but let me just be very clear. I'm willing to give 2 weeks on this, and I need a very specific plan in terms of how it would qualify to determine its eligibility, for state historic tax credits that could go into either the restoration, though I also want to make the neighbors very clear. It sounds from Tim Johnson that there's not much restoration, so it seems like if there were any kind of tax credit, it would go toward the rebuilding and the reincorporation of some of these architecturally significant elements here. So, Katie?
Yeah, so there are state and federal tax credits for the rehabilitation of certified historic structures. This property is listed as a contributing property within the Paseo Neighborhood National Register District, so it would already presumably be eligible for the tax credits on that basis, that it's a historic structure. The first step would be to confirm that it remains contributing to the National Register District with the State Historic Preservation Office. The next step would be to propose a redevelopment of the property to the State Historic Preservation Office that is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. That means that critical mass of the historic integrity of the building is either being retained and preserved or is being reconstructed in kind to what was there. Tax credits do allow for the adaptive reuse of historic structures. It doesn't have to remain a church, but that use has to retain the character-defining features, including interior features of the property, to qualify for the tax credits.
And within 2 weeks, we would receive that determination?
So I wouldn't use the word determination. I think at any time, the developer could have a conversation with State Historic Preservation Office staff about the condition of the property, the historic integrity of the property, and about a proposed reuse of the property, and get meaningful feedback from their staff about whether or not that would be likely to qualify for historic tax credits. There's a formal process through the National Park Service to actually get official sign-off at each step of using the historic tax credits, but they could certainly within 2 weeks get a response from the State Historic Preservation Office on a potential reuse.
Now, my concern, though, with this, and I think this is some of the confusion on some of the part of the neighbors, because they think this building can be restored. But Mr. Johnson's assessment is that it would come down, please tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth. Again, that's that active listening part. That it would come down to the foundation. Come on, Tim, please, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're correct. Our analysis is, in order to repair the foundation, the walls would have to come down basically to the foundation and get rebuilt. And that's really what was our deciding factor.
If that's the case, and it sounds like it is, would this qualify? I know you're not the office, but would they be able? Is it even worth pursuing to try to receive funding that whatever new structure goes up that's incorporating? For instance, we're looking at these doors are beautiful and architecturally significant. The windows, the arched, they're such a character of the neighborhood. As someone who lives I'm 3 blocks from here. I'm 28, right? Is that the sort of thing that office would say, okay, you're taking things from this building? They've even committed that this tower that you see on the front, that they would try and replicate that tower.
So historic tax credits do not, you would not qualify for historic tax credits if you were just incorporating pieces and parts of a structure into a new development. You would potentially qualify if you are doing a complete or nearly complete reconstruction in kind, and we see that happen with buildings that have suffered a fire, suffered an earthquake, that are in such a state of deterioration that virtually the whole building has to be brought down and rebuilt, but it would have to go back matching the historic structure.
So in other words, to receive those tax credits, it would have to go toward the reconstruction of this building as a church though that might not necessarily, in terms of its facade, but not necessarily maybe in terms of its use.
Right. The building would have to be the same shape, size, design, elevations, building materials, that sort of thing. That would all have to match in its physical form. The use that occurs within the building would not have to match.
David?
Except, part of the thing is you have to have the interior, I believe, the key interior spaces have to remain as they were, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is zoned for multifamily. So my client, despite what the neighbors think, went through a lot of effort to try to find a way to incorporate this and make it work. It's zoned for multifamily. Janice Powers was adamant that no non-residential uses could be included within the SPUD that was ultimately approved. So to develop this site as multifamily, but to have a building that is required to have its key interior pieces be a replica of a church that no longer exists simply doesn't make any sense.
Council, do you all have any questions about that? I do.
Well, the only thing I'd say, and if you want to defer this for 2 weeks, I don't really have a problem with that, but tax credits don't restore buildings. Tax credits help restore. Sure. And so we would need a pro forma, we would need a lending institution, we would need plans, and that's going to take months and months and months. And the thing that concerns me is what Mr. Johnson said, is somebody could get hurt in here if it collapses or a fire starts. And so if you were talking 2-3 months, I'd be upset. But 2 weeks, I'm still concerned about. I really think, in light of the fact that there's no plans in existence to restore this building, we ought to vote just to move it forward today.
I am with, and it might shock some people, I'm with Councilman Stonecipher. I agree, and almost word for word, I agree. I'm worried about, we have unhoused residents that I work all the time to get into housing and stability. Y'all already know that about me, but sometimes I'm not everywhere, and there's a lot of them in this area sometimes, and I'm really worried about one of them getting inside this historic building and it coming down on them. That is a grave concern I have, grave concern, and I would have to live with that for the rest of my days, and I can't do that. I even worry about doing that for 2 weeks, and so I'm really with what Councilman Stonecipher is saying. So if we can just have the 2 weeks to kind of solidify, at the very least, what I want to try and preserve into the new structure, if that's where we're heading, that's all I'm asking. Just give me the 2 weeks. Just give me the 2 weeks. And if you can come back, if you find out through that office with tax credit folk that there's something at all there, that's it.
So we can certainly work with you. Well, I think we can give you a commitment today on the elements that you want. There's no path forward for tax credits.
Humor me.
I mean, I know. We can make a call,
sure,
but that is a year-long process.
Sure.
There's no path for tax credits.
Please make that call.
Okay.
I just am someone who likes to check a lot of boxes, so like Mr. Box. So
Mark will make that call.
So look, I'm just saying, I'm someone who when people like to spread rumors, I think the only way someone can address that is to shine a light on it, and I will shine the brightest light on it right now in a very public space. I want people to understand that I have done everything I can do to address this church and this situation, but ultimately, the reality is reality.
Yeah, the neighbors had lots of ideas, but no plans.
So,
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Okay, one. Does the structure still have to be standing for you to make the phone call to find out about the tax credits? And I don't know if that's a you answer or somebody else.
I know nothing about tax credits.
I mean, I think if you call and say it's already been torn down, can we get tax credits? It's going to be probably not. I don't work for the State Historic Preservation Office, but I think that would be a pretty short conversation.
How long will it take us to tear it down if we vote to approve its item on the agenda today?
Well, initially, we'll have a 30-day dead period. We won't do anything for 30 days after declaration today. That's the time when we're usually taking bids and what have you. Once we award it to a contractor, then they have to go through the permit process. That can be lengthy as well. Sometimes it takes 4 or 6 weeks to get utilities shut off, things of that nature. So before we could even think about it, a couple of months at bare minimum, before we could even have a contractor consider it.
So with all due respect to the council member, plenty of time for them to make that phone call, for us to go ahead and have this vote today to get the clock started, so that instead of waiting 2 more weeks to then start a clock on a structure that we all agree is very unsafe for others. And if I recall on other items in the past, you've said, you know, for example, if we get a different answer than Mr. Bach suspects on the tax credits, then the city can go a different course working with the property owner?
Always willing to work with property owner.
How do you feel about
restore the
that,
property.
council member?
I have a question real quick to your question. Sorry, Councilwoman Peck.
That's okay.
Would the developer not demolish his own building?
We tried to seek demolition, and the HP Commission said no.
Okay, thank you.
We very much want to demolish. We tried our own.
I was just in the quest of that question. I was just curious.
It's a great question.
Yeah, look, under normal circumstances, I would probably say you're right. I have already told my residents that I would do that 2 weeks, and I'm a man of my word, and that's ultimately what it. But otherwise, I hear you. Okay. I hear everything. I'm not a man of unreason. It's just I'm a person of my word. I made my word, and we'll see you in 2 weeks if you all are amenable to that. And unless there's, as Councilman Stonecipher says, a pro forma plan going forward, then we know what we're doing. And then, you know, to the folk who are so sad of the history following urban renewal of buildings coming down and wanting to preserve and revitalize buildings, look what we just set in motion with that class and TIF earlier to preserve, for instance, the Gold Dome. There are several of us up here as council members who are chomping at the bit with the next bond election to not just put money in there for community and economic development as it relates to housing, but to create a pot of money to actually be able, where the city could purchase historic properties and redevelop them. That's on the table. That's on the table. And if you believe in that sort of advocacy and work, then reach out to your council members and advocate for inclusion for that pot of money in the next bond, the bond election in 2025. That has been my North Star since I took this oath of office 5 years ago. So that's the way forward. I'm heartbroken that we're here, but I was 18 20 years ago when Chad's talking about. I wasn't on this horseshoe. I was in college. So I wasn't there to preserve it. I'm sorry, but I'm here now and I'm doing the best I can. So just for a 2-week deferral, that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, so we need a motion to defer the item. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. This is for 2 weeks. Passes 6-3.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is item L. This is the public hearing regarding the dilapidated structures here listed. And we do have, Joe Crodel. This is relative to items L and, relative to items, actually, I don't know which one he cared about.
Mayor, I've been notified he's left.
Okay.
I'd actually like to move this for a deferral until our August 13th meeting, if we could.
Specifically, item B?
Yeah.
The Lyrewood stuff?
Oh, I'm so sorry, yes. I kind of jumped ahead of that, but yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so there's a motion to defer item L1B till August when?
13th.
13th, August 13th. All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 8-1. Okay, we're back on the remaining items, and Amy, has anyone signed up to speak under this public hearing?
No, they haven't.
So we'll advance to the resolution found at L2, declaring that the structures are dilapidated, except for that one previously deferred. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item M1 is public hearing regarding the unsecured structures here listed, except for those previously struck. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
They have not.
Since they have not, we will close the public hearing and advance to the resolution found in 2 declaring the structures are unsecured. Motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On item N1C, I'm guessing you might want to defer that as well, Councilman Carter?
Yes, sir.
To August 13th? So we'll bring up that motion for deferral of item N1C. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes.
Just verbally.
Passes 8-1. And now we are back on the other items. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak under this public hearing?
They have not.
So we'll advance to the resolution found at N2 declaring the buildings are abandoned except for that item previously deferred and those items previously struck. A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, now we're at item O. We do have some people who've signed up under the public hearing regarding the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025 annual budget. So we will hear from those people first.
So you want me to, I've got Chris to do a quick
technically,
summary.
public hearing's the first thing on the
Okay.
agenda. So we'll start there, and then he can, essentially, his summary will relate to item 2.
Great.
So. Okay, Lamont Carter. And if everyone would please state your name and address and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less.
Good morning, council members. My name is Lamont Carter. My address is 11632 Northeast 54th Street, Spencer, Oklahoma 73084. I come to speak in regards to Menace Lakeview Park, hoping that we can keep this park open and subsequently under the Oklahoma City Parks and Recreation Department's budget, whereby for these 3 facts. 1, we do have people coming into the neighborhood, building homes and living there, so therefore the tax base structure will hopefully increase. Secondly, we will have students coming into the area, young people bringing their children, and need a place to come and enjoy and recreate outside in the area, which is quite lovely, well wooded, if you will, and quiet. And lastly, I have to go some 30 miles to the Willa Johnson Recreation Center in order to take part in the activities and facilities provided there. So these are some of the reasons why it should stay under that budget, because you spent money well there at Willa Johnson, as you have at the other wellness centers here in the city. And if we can go ahead and improve that outlying area of Oklahoma City, it would be something that I think would bring, let's say everybody's trying to be the next 21st century, 23rd and 22nd century city. I think you'll be well served in doing that and coming to that far area and bringing people closer, because everything does seem to be centered toward the metro, and I think outside helps the inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole McAfee.
Hello, my name is Nicole McAfee. My pronouns are they and she. And I'm a homeowner, worker, voter, and community member in Ward 6. This is the 5th year in a row that I've stood before you and asked you to rethink the budget as presented by our city manager, a man who alone makes more than 4 times the median household income in Oklahoma City. It's hard to draft these comments year after year when it feels like by the time the public has any input or information about the budget, all of the decisions have already been made. It's hard to write comments when we're facing news of yet another death at the jail that our mayor would rather move out of our city than work to create any safety or accountability around. I hear that Oklahoma City is big league. But what does that league mean? Why does it continue to come at the cost of our most historically marginalized and excluded residents? I know just earlier in this meeting you considered adding one of the tallest towers in the world to the Oklahoma City skyline. A phallus of folly to join the famed OKC ring. Will it, like so many of our other buildings, sit empty while Oklahoma City eviction dockets continue to grow and the number of our neighbors without fixed residences multiplies? I don't believe that there's a point it will be bad enough for some of you, including you, Mr. Mayor, to act until the harm becomes personal. But still, I draft these comments. I come here to speak as an act of hope. Right to you, I speak here to submit a record of the type of city folks are building outside of City Hall. For each other, not for big league businesses or personal political agendas. I'm telling you that the budget our city needs flips the priorities presented in today's budget on their head, instead building the kind of big love city where we take care of one another first, where we invest in safety, not policing, where we invest not in shiny new stadiums or record-breaking towers, but in one another. A budget that helps ensure each of our needs are well met. Accessible housing, whether affordable or subsidized, that can become
30
a
seconds
home
remaining.
and can keep us safe and sheltered. In extreme weather, food that is nutritious and culturally competent, community health care, all of the things that are either entirely left out of or are afterthoughts in this budget that yet again was drafted without meaningful constituent input. I'll continue to ask you to vote no on this budget. Please, send the budget back to the drawing board. The residents of Oklahoma City deserve so much better.
Thank you. Katrina Ward.
Hello, my name is Katrina Ward. I live at 2704 Northwest 21st Street. I really don't like public speaking. I don't like coming here. You can hear my voice shaking. It's not my forte. I'm a researcher. I'm better in a library. But I think it's really important to say that budgets are moral documents, and they reveal what we care about and what we value. And it's very clear that what our budget values is development, police, and things that don't actually provide safety or community for our people. We've also heard a lot from people who really want to be a part of the process. We have seen so many people come and talk about Menace Lakeview, which it's been incredible. Thank you guys for showing up week after week. That never should have been on the chopping block in the first place, and you would know that if you'd actually talked to people in the community. There are better ways to put this budget together. I know that it's really hard to put a budget together, city manager. I know that there's lots of numbers. I wouldn't want to do your job. And there are real people whose lives are affected by this process, and I think that we could do a much better job including them earlier in the process and make sure that people actually have a say. I also want to say that City Council seems, from some members of this body, to be treated like a place where things are rubber stamped. I just want to say that I really appreciate the people who take the time to dig in on these issues, because this is where we, the public, get to engage with you. This is not just a place to pass things through, and I really appreciate the time that is taken on issues that really affect all of us. I just want to end by saying we could have a budget that looks different. We could have a budget that is not determined by bond rating agencies and as actually for our people, and I think that that would be an incredible thing to do, and so I ask you to vote no on this budget and try again. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy Beasley.
Good morning. Troy Beasley, 3400 North Anderson Road, Choctaw, Oklahoma 73020. I wanted to first thank, and I'm not sure if she's still here, Miss Melinda McMillan Miller, tongue twister name, for her efforts and her thick-skinnedness during the process that we recently fought through with Parks and Recs in the community surrounding Menace Lakeview. I actually, while she was talking about her office calling residents, I got the call literally while she was standing at the mic and had to walk out to take it. So the things are moving, and I want everyone involved to not do it like we typically do, and once we get over the speed bump, we never look back. And try to endeavor to make these things realistic. I noticed a lot of presentations, slides and things presented during Parks and Recs about services offered. And if you all recall at that meeting, when they were asked what services of those listed were being offered in the community, and almost as if we rehearsed it in choir, none was sounded in unison by the community. Well, I want to implore everyone to work together now that we're in a better space. And now that closure is no longer being discussed, defunding is no longer being discussed, repurposing is no longer being discussed. So we've accomplished some things, and I think if people will pay attention to the information and the relevant progressions, we can refocus our efforts on moving forward. And so I'm asking that in order to make the things that we present on these slides and these screens true, that we continue to support the efforts of the community as they voice their needs for their own programming. And when I say their own, I would like for Oklahoma City Parks and Recs to continue to fund the programs that they claim existed there, but with the partnership of the community and other entities involved to make everything cohesive and true. We have not met as a community yet. I'm looking forward to those meetings, but again, you all receive a lot of problematic speaking, attacking type issues, redirective things. Very rarely do we get celebratory comments at this podium. And I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank the community and the people involved, because now we seem to have a tone of progression. So that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Aurelius Francisco.
Good morning, Council. Sorry to rain on the parade of the celebratory comments. I'm here to speak in opposition of this year's budget, and to, again, as I have week after week, encourage you all to engage in a participatory budget process that engages community members from the beginning of the next year's budget process all the way up until the end. And I'm eager to hear another presentation from the city manager's office about the feedback that was received through the website and how that was actually implemented in this next year's budget, and not just how that was received and it's already in the line items that you already had. I also want to say that I am here today currently missing a convening of the Safer Communities Accelerator, which is a project funded by the Just Trust, a philanthropic organization nationally that funds community-based organizations to create safety in our communities. What this city has the potential to do is to create a more expansive vision of public safety that includes the community, that creates a vision of community safety, that funds and supports and invests in community-based organizations like mine, Foundation for Liberating Minds, like Live Free Oklahoma City, like Freedom Oklahoma, like so many other organizations who are building safety within the community by preventing violence rather than just responding to violence like the police do. Investing in things like restorative and transformative justice, investing in violence interruption, and investing in core public services that are currently lacking in the city, like housing, like food access and transportation, right? These are things that actually promote safety and that are lacking in our budget. As long as we have people who are sleeping on sidewalks, on park benches. It was pouring rain last night. I stayed at the Fortson Hotel, right? You had homeless folks who had all of their belongings with them, who had to rush into parking garages to get out from the conditions of the rain. This is what we have in the city of Oklahoma City. Every single homeless person is a failure of our government. And until we ensure that each and every person has access to quality, affordable housing, to stable income and wages, our budget is lacking in the moral imperative that you all have as public officials. So I encourage you to invest in these public safety measures, to invest in a broader and
30 seconds
expansive
remaining.
vision of community safety, and to invest in community-based approaches to creating that safety. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the residents who signed up to speak under the public hearing. Now we're at item 2, and Mr. City Manager, you said there was a little bit of a summary.
Yeah, Chris is just going to give an overview summary here before we move forward.
All right, thank you, City Manager. Well, we've had about a month plus of presentations, and so I won't retread that same ground, but I'd like to give you a quick recap. As we get on to the next slide here, starting in April 30th, Council received the budget, the proposed budget, and then started receiving presentations from a number of our departments. That's also the date when we opened up our ears for resident feedback. And we received 39 comments, which Council received on May the 28th. We continue to leave open that process, and so we received another 39 comments. I don't know why that's the magic number, but that's what we received through yesterday. And if I had to characterize those comments, I would say 37 were related to Israel and Palestine, and 2 requested McKinley Park continue to operate as it has been. So just a few updates in the process as we've moved along here. Of course, Menace Lakeview, based on feedback from our residents, will continue to operate as usual in the next fiscal year. And Parks is also starting the conversation with community organizations to try and close the gap in services caused by McKinley Park. Embark is likewise working towards an agreement for the operation of Spokies. And so let's take a look again about that overview of the budget on the next slide, please. So again, as we discussed previously, the budget is going up 4% in total, but this is primarily driven by the increases in our MAPS 4 program as the MAPS 4 office starts to ramp up its expenditures and spend some of the revenue it's received in prior years and get out those projects. If we carve out the non-operating funds and just focus on our general fund and our other operating funds, the locations that we provide services from, you'll note that both of those are having slight declines in the next year. This was a cut year, and we did ask departments to propose reductions in their budget. If I had to describe the strategy this year, it was really to maintain as much service as possible while living within our revenue forecast and also dealing with our higher cost of goods, our higher cost of service contracts, and our higher wages from our employees. Speaking of revenue, the city manager had indicated earlier that looking at revenue for the current fiscal year, we are expecting to miss our target just shy of FY24's number. We think we're going to end about 1.4% growth. Any growth is good. We're happy to take that, but it does put us in a little bit tougher situation for next year. So when we end the year missing target like that, it gives us a lower base to grow from next year. You might recall that we've built FY25's budget on a 1.5% sales tax growth for next year. It was a pretty restrained growth rate because we usually see about 3%. Well, with us ending the year at 1.4% in the current fiscal year, that means we need to grow even more to hit that target for next year to hit the number that we built our budget based on. So we are looking at about a 2% revenue growth for next year to make our target. I will say we've spoken with our economist, and Russell Evans has advised that looking at sales tax numbers over the last few months, as well as the economy in general, he has given us a new top number in his range of up to 2.8%, but he gave us a really big asterisk that is very optimistic. And so with us landing at about 2% growth needed for next year, I think that's reasonable and accomplishable and still within the range advised by our economist. Next slide, please. So as we switch to positions, because these are the individuals that are delivering services to our residents, we are adding headcount for next year. There's an additional 9 in total, but this is almost exclusively driven by the standing up of our crisis response program in fire. That alone adds about 20-something positions. And so if we look at 19 departments, in total we had 8 that had reductions in headcount, and only 4, including fire, had increases. As we zoom in here, and I apologize, I know that's small font, but we really see the story here with 22 increased in fire. But as we look at our other increases, municipal councilor had 1 that's to be funded by utilities, 3 additional ones in parks for the Woodson Sports Complex maintenance, and that was funded by cuts made in other programs. And then we had 1 additional position in utilities for the Tinker Water contract that's being funded by the federal government. And I'd remind you that the position increases in fire were split funded between the opioid settlement funds as well as some task force reserve money that we've been able to set aside in prior years. So the story here is that, again, it was a cut year. If you look across most of the departments, they struggled to either hold their ground or had to make slight reductions. And with that, that's all the call-outs that I have for you, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Well, we're on item 02, which is a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025 annual budget. And if there's no comments or questions, we could take a motion.
I just have a couple comments in this. I would like to say, while I am very grateful that we are able to save Menace Lakeview in this budget, it should not have been presented in the first place without talking to our community and understanding what was happening and what priorities are for this part of our community. It also shows me where our priorities are, and it's not necessarily specifically our communities. I do also have a concern about us looking at how we're prioritizing this. I know even last year we did prioritize other community centers in the ways that we are, but at the same time, we're still struggling with some of those same places that we had to set aside, not fully struggling, but the fact remains where community used to have free access, they no longer have it. So those are also concerns. As we heard from comments and even looking at the residential comments that came through pertaining to other parts of our budget, I think it is important for us to look at how we reimagine how we prioritize our residents in our different departments that we know impact us daily. And I know for my residents, I just heard from them, a lot of them on Saturday afternoon at a community meeting as we continue to talk about our residents in that far northeast quadrant, specifically Spencer and Dungy and the Oklahoma City part of our community. Quite a few of them have advised me that when they call for assistance from different departments, it takes quite a bit of time for them to get a response. Whereas some communities have been prioritized and some we still have some struggle with. Also with our 911 service, I've heard this more than once within our community about the delay of response or answering the call for immediate response. And some saying, well, let us call you back. Now, how that works, I do not know, and how that's interpreted by those residents. You know, that is how they feel they were not prioritized as far as that call is concerned. So, again, we had residents also ask about how we can add more funding or just some prioritizing some programming for specifically this same center that we are now reimagining, that we are no longer repurposing or defunding or whatever the language you like to use, closing, whatever the language you like to use. So for those things, I find it very difficult for me to support the budget overall. Again, I'm very confident and very grateful for us being able to listen to our residents, but I think there's a lot more we could do and can do in order to make sure our residents are taken care of, especially in this part of our community and in our urban core of our community, pertaining to, I don't see a line item in anywhere about that community intervention that we've been wanting to handle for years, that we've been talking about since 2019, well before we even had a law enforcement task force. We've been working on trying to look at how we reimagine what that looks like for our city, and we still have yet to see it. So I just wanted those things to be heard before this specific vote, but I do hope as we look at our future budgets that they are a participatory budget, that we are able to actually do better work pertaining to our residents, pertaining to what conversations look like, pertaining to giving at least a heads up to places that we are considering may have some type of shift in the funding mechanism that they may be used to. So again, I appreciate and I hope we'll work towards us being able to have more transparency in our budget process.
Okay.
Just a couple comments to elaborate on Embark's work regarding Spokies. I can't go into the details in terms of with whom in the private sector we're working, but I really want to express my gratitude to the residents who reached out to me about that service, because thankfully Assistant City Manager Fairbrush and Jesse Rush and Josh Vaught, like we were in the process right now of not just working with an operator to preserve Spokies, but we're really looking at what expanding Spokies would look like, expanding our bike share program, and being very deliberate about expansion within the commercial corridor districts. We're going to be talking with stakeholders, Hide and Go Bike and Bike Oklahoma, people who are actually on the ground doing the bike riding and helping us be very intentional about what expansion looks like. And I often worry that the cake feels baked heading into these budgets. And so in this instance, I want to express a lot of gratitude to ACM Fairbrush and his team for hearing those concerns and working with us to address them. That's commendable, and I'm excited to see what's next there. My understanding that this fall we're expecting finalization on our alternative response to the 911 calls with mental health. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, for me, it is always difficult to say yes to a budget that doesn't meet all of my priorities by really any stretch of the imagination. But when there are things in there that I find very important, then it's just hard for me to say no. It just is. It's also hard for me to say yes. I'm not going to lie to you all. But when I am able to accomplish some of the things that I am accomplishing, then I'm going to stand by them. So that's what I'll have to say about that.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments, we can take a motion to adopt the resolution found at 02. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 7-2. Thank you to the city manager and the whole team. I know it's kind of like the biggest thing you do all year.
Yes,
so
no, I appreciate that. And I want to say thanks to Chris and his team and really all the departments that worked so hard in this and those who participated in the budget process and shared their comments and their concerns about different things. I just really appreciate everyone who was involved.
Thank you. Now, we do have a couple of items upcoming that we always adopt about this time. They're kind of related. Item 11P, we have a public hearing regarding the fire sales tax appropriations. Amy, did anyone sign up to speak under this public hearing?
No, they didn't.
They did not. And so we'll go to the resolution at number 2, and you have a brief presentation.
Yeah, Chris York will present both of these on items P and Q. Chris York, our budget director. But these are in line. I just want to note also that they're in line with the budget that we just approved, that we have to get these resolutions lined up. We're required to do that, and so I'll let Chris present what's included.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager. So as the City Manager indicated, the public safety sales tax does have a couple of more steps to the process in addition to approving the budget, which, as Mr. Freeman indicated, will match what's in these resolutions. But if we look at this next slide here, there's some additional steps. We're on step 1 today, which is a resolution be adopted from council that directs us on how public safety sales tax dollars will be spent. We're also required to bring you back any amendments when we deviate from that plan. And then finally, we finish up the year with a public safety sales tax report from our auditor and the fire department, police department, and finance. And so again, we're on step 1 today. This is the introduction. If we look at the fire portion of the tax, I'll just go through very quickly here. So overall, there aren't any changes to the general type of approved projects or exhibits, as we call them here. And so the list is the same from prior year. Some major changes include a $1.9 million increase in Exhibit A, and that's to fund 205 firefighter positions. We also have a $400,000 increase in Exhibit C for our wage adjustment, and this allows us to pay our uniform personnel a little bit higher wages. We have a $182,000 increase in fire support personnel. These are going to be our civilian staff supporting the operation. A $300,000 increase in the Advanced Life Support Program to fund paramedic training, and then a $500,000 increase in fire technology for installation of drone bases for fire service. And so overall, we have a $3.3 million increase in the fire sales tax. As we switch to the police side, again, we have the same general list of project types that are approved. We have slight decreases in Exhibits A, B, and D, with all other projects increasing. The largest increase is in Exhibit G, which is capital improvements, at $5.1 million. And this is as the department preps up for building a storage facility for its specialized equipment. They've outgrown its current location at 15th and Portland. We also have a $500,000 increase in supplies, equipment, and services. As we've discussed, costs for goods are just going up in general. So overall, the police sales tax portion of the fund is increasing by $6.4 million. And again, this is the introduction with public hearing. We'll bring these items back to you on June the 18th for a final hearing.
Okay, well, you heard the presentation relative to both P and Q. We're in the posture of 11P2, however, and we could take a motion to introduce this resolution.
Mayor, just this item recalls for me just, and forgive me, probably should have said it under O, but you know, a thing I hear from my residents quite a bit, and the reason why this comes up in my mind now is I know that this public safety sales tax was the result of a citizens initiative petition back in '89, right? So this was residents asking for this public safety sales tax back in the day?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'm just giving that context because some of those actual same residents reach out to me today from that era. They reach out to me and they're code enforcement. I'm not saying to do anything with this public safety sales tax to address code enforcement, but I am raising that code enforcement workers. I have a concern about what can we do to better recruit so we can shore up their numbers so that they can, you know, be as proactive. I know it's 621 square miles, so it's kind of hard to be out and about, but I know a lot of times residents feel, you know, the response times or the follow-up, and so and I know we have a lot of retirements in that, and I know, as you very well know, it's something I'm hoping our community benefits agreement can kind of help with, even outside the arena, just better recruiting folk and retaining a workforce. But I just wanted to put it into the ether that I think that code enforcement workers in addition to IT, which I hear we have a big shortage. But, you know, that's just a big concern I hear from residents all the time is code enforcement. I should have said it under O, but I'm bringing it up here because literally residents who helped secure this sales tax have just brought that up to my attention in recent days. So would like to hear a little bit more over time about our plan there. Thanks.
All right, so we're back on P2, and we could take a motion to introduce the resolution. A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously and will receive final hearing on June 18th. Now we're at Q1, the public hearing regarding the police sales tax appropriations. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
So we'll advance to the resolution found at Q2, which is up for introduction today and a final hearing on June 18th. We could take a motion on that as well. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, now we're at R. This is a joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust certifying that Project Mystery, a proposed feature film, is an eligible project under the Strategic Investment Program's Film Incentive Program. We have a...
Yes, Jill Simpson with
Hi,
the
Jill.
Oklahoma City
Good
Film
morning.
Office is going to give
Morning,
a quick
council
presentation.
members. I'm here to present a 6th rebate application to you for a project we've codenamed Project Mystery. You can go ahead and advance it. It's a small budget Oklahoma-made film, and it's a crime drama set in a small town. Their filming dates are May 21st through June 23rd. This project did come to us a little bit late. I'd been talking to them since January, but it was their first time applying, so I did everything I could to support them, considering they were an Oklahoma-made project. Oklahoma-based producer, director, Kyle Kawika Harris, and producer Jacob Snovel, and that pair is responsible for several films that have been made in Oklahoma. One that was shot in Oklahoma City in 2022 called Out of Exile, and they've also produced Country Gold and What Rhymes with Reason, which has done really well on the festival circuit. Bless you. They're utilizing 2 different Oklahoma City facilities, Filmmakers Ranch and Boiling Point Media. 94% of their crew is Oklahoma City based, and anticipated Oklahoma City expenditures, 1.5 million, a little bit above that. And I do want to note here that they are utilizing 6 local Oklahoma City companies, 5 Penny Pictures for their cameras and lenses, Nathan Gardaki Productions for grip and electric supplies and equipment, Enterprise Rent-A-Truck here in Oklahoma City, again, Filmmakers Ranch for studio services, grip electric production supplies, Alar Pictures, the producer and unit production manager, and Safe House Films, the production company. We can go on to the next. They are at a budget level that pre-qualifies them for the 5% rebate, which is a minimum $500,000 budget. Again, their local expenditures are going to be roughly $1.5 million. And some of the other pre-qualifying considerations, expenditures of $500,000, 50% of the filming days in Oklahoma City. Their main production office is located within city limits at Filmmakers Ranch. They're doing post-production here, something we really like to see, the editing and sound mixing. And that will be at Filmmakers Ranch and at Boiling Point Media. And they're also pre-qualified for the State of Oklahoma Film Incentive Program. Based on all these numbers and running it through our internal economic impact modeler, we came up with a figure of $64,813 as their rebate, proposed rebate allocation. They're hiring 68 locals, and if you extrapolate that over 25 days of filming, that comes to 1,700 filming days. Again, 94% OKC residents. Total labor income, $1.133992 million. 20 days on an Oklahoma City soundstage, and 100% of picture and post-production sound editing and mixing here in Oklahoma City. This is just reiterating some of the other benefits of the project. 80% of filming days within Oklahoma City limits, 95% of crew are local, 100% of vendors are Oklahoma City vendors, and 95% of our tech talent, which is film editors, composers, colorists, sound engineers, scoring, and source music, are Oklahoma City. So the economic impact as a result of our economic impact study is the total output for this $1.5 million expenditure comes to $3.5 million. It supports 86 local jobs, labor income of a little over 1.7 million, and taxable expenditures of $161,020, and below the line salary and per diem of a little under $500,000. Can I answer any questions?
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we can take up the resolution then with a motion. This is for item 11R. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, now we're at 11S1 and 2. This item has been deferred a few times. This is a resolution adopting an update to Bike Walk OKC, and today there is an amendment being brought forward, and that's item 1, and
Yes.
there's an explanation of the amendment.
Yes, Jeff Butler, our planning director, is here, and he can explain the amendment we had. It came from a request that Councilwoman Nice had asked about communications with the public. So I'll let him just explain the amendment on here, and we will need to vote on the amendment as well as on the resolution.
Yes, thank you, Jeff Butler, Planning Director. So the amendment was requested to add some additional language, which we have done on page 133. It's in the implementation section of the draft plan, and it talks about public engagement and education efforts, lists several kind of actions that we typically do take and will take in the future, kind of to augment what we have done in the past, a little more specificity. When it comes to how to use infrastructure, also project delivery, how to help people understand what that involves, how to engage residents in every phase of a process, from the planning process through design and implementation. So that's kind of what's new. Last time we discussed an additional trail extension, so that is in here as well. Happy to answer any questions.
I don't have questions, but I know I did talk to Mr. City Manager about this yesterday. I did want to look at, there were just two things I wanted to amend on the engagement efforts, and that would be in that second paragraph, last sentence, activities or tools in the plan. I see may, but I would like to change may to will. Because I believe we should be very intentional about including, not to say all of these things have to be included, but if you look within the rest of the document, it says will continue. So I would like for us to change that may to will, and also in those numbered items on item 3, in that sentence, or I would like for us to just add and or in that. And those would be the only requests as far as my asks. Otherwise, I do appreciate the efforts that you all have been able to bring towards this effort. I think, and as we were talking yesterday with my appointment with the city manager, that I understand, yes, some of these are one-off projects that will be a little more engagement than others, but I think it's very important for our language to be very intentional about those wills, as far as, again, with the will continues and the will continues, and for us to say will include, if you don't mind. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, we can make that change.
The one thing I'd suggest, and I think I'm probably for this, but I haven't seen page 133 and the changes, and so I'd like to take some time and read it And in light of that, I'd probably like to defer this for a couple of weeks so I can, and I think I support the language. I just want to read it and understand it and make sure I support it.
It's really all it is. Sorry. It's just trying to just clarify that our commitment to communicating with the public when we make these changes.
And I agree, and we need that. We need it for public safety. But I don't want to go back to my constituents and say, I didn't take the time to study this, read it, and think about it.
Okay. So we can come back then with the changes that Councilwoman Nice requested and get those incorporated and make that the amendment. So vote on the amendment first. I'm sorry.
Well, we don't have to. I mean, I would think, and maybe Kenny, we may need you here. It seems to me if we're just deferring the underlying item that we don't even need to take up the amendment, and then next meeting we can have
take that
the
up.
amended amendment that reflects.
The only thing I need is page 133 with the amendments to read it, and next time I'm sure I'll vote for it.
So next time we'll have an amendment that reflects the requests made today.
Yes, we'll update that verbiage.
And then all I think we need to vote on is just deferring the resolution. We don't need to defer the amendment, right? We just don't take it up. Yeah. Okay, so the desire is to bring forward a motion to defer item 11S2 for 2 weeks. Councilman Stonecipher?
Yes, please.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item is deferred till our next meeting in 2 weeks. Okay, item T1 is a joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority authorizing the firm Collins, Zorn, and Wagner to represent city employees Rebecca Fry and Robert Burton in the case of Johnson v. Hurd. Executive session is not requested by staff.
I'd like to request we go into executive session on this item.
All right, so we'll bring up a motion to enter into executive session, essentially a motion on T2. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Fails 3-6. We're back on the item 11T1, the joint resolution. We could take a motion on that. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes 6-3. Item U is an executive session on advice of the municipal councilor to receive confidential communications regarding Deer Creek Water v. City of OKC. We'll take a vote to go into executive session and then handle it at the end of our other business. So we can take a motion on that. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. As stated, we'll go into executive session after our other business. That does conclude our votes for today. We're now at item 12, comments from council, Ward 1.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to send out our condolences and deepest sympathies to our Officer Neely's family who had passed away this past week. He was 49 years old, and just from health purposes, and since June is Men's Health Month and Mental Health Month, I thought it'd be good to kind of remind all of us to go get that checkup and have everything kind of looked at, especially in light of the fact that it has now been shown that 600,000 men die each year due to also mental illness and suicide. And 80% of all suicides each year are men, especially in America right now. So being that it's our month, guys, I want to make sure that we, take a second to do a self-awareness and a look. So thank you.
Thank you. Ward 2?
Yes. First, I would like to say thank you to GalaxyCon for coming to Oklahoma City and to visit OKC, for connecting them with me. I got to take a katana sword, I did, and use it for a ribbon cutting for the event at the downtown convention center. And it was personally funny to me because there are some close friends and we've been joking, so we're like, all these ribbon cuttings happening lately, and the mayor gets the super tall scissors, and I got the small scissors to go beside, and the woman got the large scissors, and I got a katana sword. So where y'all going now? What are we gonna do? But it was just so much fun, and I've already shared the video of that ribbon cutting. But I shared it not just as a low-key flex, but because the event organizers spoke very highly of the treatment they received from the tourism staff, the convention staff. They said it's truly some of the best they have ever experienced, and they were just grateful, and they expressed that. They took time out of that ribbon cutting to say that, and to acknowledge the condition of the building, that they're just very proud of what the convention center looks like and to be here. So it was really cool. Data from Star Trek was here. Terry Farrell from Hellraiser 3. Very important to me as a final girl character, but also apparently from Deep Space Nine. I did not know that, because I don't watch Deep Space Nine, no offense. I just haven't gotten there yet. John Wesley Shipp from Dawson's Creek in The Flash filmed the ribbon cutting with my phone. So that was really fun. So I hope we're able to bring them back because they were quite a treat. The same weekend was the Paseo Arts Festival. I saw Councilwoman Nice and her family there. It was really wonderful just to have people in the neighborhood. And I just want to say congratulations to Amanda Bleakley and their team. 39th Street Pride, I attended that. Again, Councilwoman Nice, Mayor Holt, Senator Kurt, Arturo Alonso, representative from Southside. It was just really great to bike in that parade alongside other elected officials and friends, and to just to be there with everyone. I'll conclude though by saying that the real treat for me about attending 39th Street was, as I just was starving and was like, I gotta get back to the Paseo and get some food. I ran into a couple Ward 2 residents who were on their way back as well. And, you know, to walk back the parade route after it was all done, to walk 39th Street between Penn and Classen with a couple who've, you know, been in love for a few years now and married maybe, but I don't know. And they had the flag on and cool, it just, you know, just looked great. And to know that once upon a time, the area we were walking in 1987 when the first Pride Parade happened in Oklahoma City, to know that once upon a time the Ku Klux Klan awaited the people participating in that parade. That they were waiting for them right there where the current Goodwill at 39th and Penn is today. To know that somehow, through the evolution of thought and consciousness of the people of Oklahoma City, that who knew it would be possible for a gay couple to be walking alongside their elected council person who is openly gay in that same space. And what did we talk about? What was the conversation we had along that walk? It was about affordable housing and homelessness and their volunteer efforts with CSU Youth. And what could we do to honor the Asian district and the contributions that those community members have made. I guess it affects me, makes me, you know, tear up because I have memories going back to the Rodney King trial and the tension between black folk there and the Asian community there in LA. And to be in this seat at a time where we are crafting a TIF that is going to honor the Asian community, that a biracial black person who's queer could be in that position, that's the story we're gonna be able to tell when we're all said and done. That's the story we're gonna be able to tell right here in Oklahoma City. And we should be proud during Pride Month. We should be proud. We should be proud of the work we're doing and that we have good people doing that work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ward 3.
Just a quick appreciation of our wellness team in the police department and supporting our officers through this difficult time. They have a task ahead of them as well, and just surrounding the family and friends of our fallen officer with love and prayers. And then on a slightly lighter note, Brad and I are proud to announce the birth of our third grandchild and first grandson this week. We're very excited to have Ezra Allen in the world finally. He was definitely a gift from God, and so we want to share that with literally everybody. So thank you very much. That's it for today.
Thank you. Ward 4. Ward 5.
I'll be brief. 2 Wednesdays ago, we ribbon cut the long-awaited Senior Wellness Center on Southwestern. There's a whole generation that actually aged into the Senior Wellness Center in the building of said center, and it was great. We had about 500 to 600 people show up, great turnout. The downside to that is Saturday afternoon, I decided to go become a member, and yesterday was my first 5 o'clock in the morning workout, and so I'll appreciate if you guys help carry me out of here today because I'm a little bit tender. Thank you.
What is 5 o'clock in the morning?
Which side of are you looking at? I mean, if you're just getting home and going to bed, it's way different.
Thank you. Ward 6.
Yeah, no, 5 o'clock in the morning is not a thing. I don't think that is real. So first of all, Councilman Cooper, I just need to share that apparently Visit OKC does not know that I am a Trekkie because, one, it's data. It's not data. Thank you. And the fact that Terry Farrell was here and I didn't get to see her, and she has played transgender icon Curzon Dax, I'm so jealous, but very glad for you. But just for the future, any cons coming through, I am a Trekkie.
Thanks.
I don't know how I need to make it more obvious, but I guess it's still not widely known.
Zach and Lindsay are hearing that, and I hope that the next gen people don't beat me up now, so thanks.
Next gen people are very kind and nice. I just want to share, I want to thank the Miller Neighborhood Association. I got to attend their regular meeting last night. Originally, they said I had 10 minutes, and then we ended up talking for like an hour, but it was all very good, very positive conversation about, I was also want to thank Max Harris from the planning department. Part of what they had invited me to talk about was some of the traffic calming efforts that have been starting to sort of roll out on Villa. Heard some excitement about some of the elements of that, and got to have some good conversations about how we continue that work along Villa, but also some of the efforts they're working on to do some of that traffic calming on 12th Street and Miller, just to help make all of the folks walking, exercising out in the community safer, and make that whole area more connected and accessible for people. So it was. I appreciate getting to attend and take up some of their time. Also, this Saturday, the Metro Park Neighborhood Association is having a summer fling event. So anyone in that area, welcome to come out. Hold up the information, and then I promptly put it down. So we'll have, it's 11 to 12 on Saturday at the corner of 8th and Blackwelder. In addition to some of the OG&E, Neighborhood Alliance, some of those different entities will be there. SNI from the city will be available. And then I want to also thank Let's Fix This and then Watch For Me campaign for coming out. Let's Fix This is an organization that does civic engagement, and so they're going to come out and do voter registration and just helping folks know who their representatives are on multiple levels of government, and help folks know kind of, just education generally about voting and being part of the civic process that way. And then Watch For Me, both through ACOG and the city's staff are going to be there to talk about some of the bike projects happening in the area, but also general bike safety, pedestrian safety. So I really appreciate all those different partners coming together to be in attendance. It should hopefully be a lot of fun. Crossing my fingers the weather is good, but just appreciate Metro Park for inviting me to take part, and excited to go hang out with them. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Ward 7?
Well, yes, I just want to say to Councilman Hinkle, my mom doesn't even get up that early to exercise. She goes to her senior center on the east side at 6 to walk around. But I'm very excited for that center. I actually saw a young lady that is eligible for that center, and she had no idea it existed, and she lives in the Moore area. And I said, here's your local senior center over here. I asked her to pull it up so she knew where it was. So I think we're all excited about the recreation that our seniors will be able to enjoy from these different facilities. So I can't wait to see the inside. I want to see it as well. Maybe we'll finally get to play pickleball someday. Okay, challenge. Also want to say happy Pride, and to say it was an enjoyable experience Sunday to participate in the 39th Street Parade. I've done it since I've been in this office, and very grateful to connect with all of our residents that love each other. That's the best way to put it, that love each other. And now, such a time as this, with the things that are happening in our communities across the country as well. And also thankful to the Diversity Center. They had an event a couple Fridays ago, if I'm not mistaken, about suicide prevention within our LGBTQ plus community. So being able to hear stories and just be a part of that experience, I'm very grateful for. I just wanted to mention a couple things as well. Juneteenth weekend is coming up, so it'll be next weekend. Although by the time we have our council meeting, we won't celebrate Juneteenth until the actual next day, but as we heard at our last meeting, all of those celebrations and events will be happening next weekend. So please make sure you attend and understand the purpose of what Juneteenth means for the Black community, and Emancipation Day, which is also what it is called. I want to thank I had some seniors that I was able to visit yesterday at the Acclaim Senior Center on 122nd and Penn. And I want to mention this because they were talking about mobility and the fact that how they are able to get around, but also lacking access to get around as well. Because if we can all agree, Penn is a very busy street, especially within that part of our city. And for our seniors that are able-bodied, it's very difficult for them to move if they are catching the bus, to a bus stop and have that type of transportation. So I want us to be mindful of how we can look at this part of our community, and I will get with our assistant city manager just to see if he can help me, and also with our city manager to see what our options are to ensure maybe that there's some type of crosswalk for our seniors to be able to cross to get to the bus stop if possible. I also want to thank my Spencer Dungee community, one, for being very present during this budget process, but also being able to join them on this past Saturday at 1 o'clock under the tree on 36th and Post. It was a good meeting, well attended. It was hot Saturday, so it was hot under that tree. It was very hot under that tree. But we had a good time. It's always good to hear what's happening. And I know that what has happened through Menace Lakeview has engaged in a different way of commitment of the community to be involved in what's happening around them. So I'm very grateful that they are stepping up, not to say they hadn't before, but being very intentional about reviving their community efforts and engagement within this part of our community. And also I want to give a shout out to our Code Enforcement and Action Center. They were special guests along with myself. I didn't know it till I saw them at Wildwood Cash and Park Estates Neighborhood Association meeting last night. So they were talking about code enforcement. They were talking about what happens when you call the Action Center. And they gave a lot of good information to our residents and neighbors that live within this part of our community. So again, that just speaks to the accessibility of our city staff and different departments. So very grateful when they show up and the neighbors ask and they say yes, because that's after hours for a lot of our city staff. So very grateful again for the work that they're doing throughout our city, and looking forward to being able to celebrate our community for Juneteenth.
Thank you, Ward 8.
Yes, I wanted to thank Sister Cities International of Oklahoma City for a donation to the city. It's a multi-dimensional work of cultural public art. It's titled Connections, Oklahoma City's Global Family. It's by local artists Scott Henderson and Kyle Van Osdel. It will be displayed at the Will Rogers World Airport. For those of you that don't know anything about Sister Cities, it's a nonprofit that was developed by Dwight Eisenhower in 1956. Its goal is to bring cities together and to develop relationships and partnerships globally that keeps the world better connected. So thank you, Sister Cities.
Thank you. All right, that concludes comments from council. Now we're on citizens to be heard. We have one who has signed up to speak, Jacqueline Shelton.
Hello, Jacqueline Shelton, 2617 Southwest 63rd Place, Ward 5. I want to start with the land acknowledgement. We are currently on Kiowa, Osage, and Wichita and Comanche land, otherwise known as Oklahoma City. We are visitors here on this land, and we should honor this land by treating it and the people with respect. I want to read a post from June 2nd. According to testimonies of released detainees from Gaza, the captives subjected to the most extreme torture by the occupation are doctors and medical workers. Yesterday, Israel announced its martyrdom of 36 Palestinians in the Zionist concentration camps. These Palestinians were tortured to death. Settlers were invited to watch and film the Palestinian captives get tortured by the Israeli occupying forces. Some settlers brought their children with them. They spit on the captives and peed on them. This is subhuman behavior. And this subhuman behavior is what anyone who does not call for a ceasefire and divestment aligns with. You align with urinating and torturing doctors and medical professionals. Would you take your kids to watch that? They do in Israel. Our own mayor, David Holt, has visited Israel and saw the occupation and decided he was fine with genocide, as he refuses to take a stance against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and call for a ceasefire and total divestment of Oklahoman tax dollars from the Israeli occupation. Here we are, yet again, discussing budgets and how there is just not enough money. Oklahoma has invested $64 million of our tax dollars in a foreign government and their military. You all have a duty to your communities to call for divestment and ceasefire in Palestine. Oklahomans have worked hard for their tax dollars, and they deserve to utilize them in their own communities. One can only wonder if perhaps our state divested $64 million in tax dollars, you all wouldn't have to vote to stop the city from funding already underserved communities to meet others' needs. More than 500 Oklahomans of all walks of life gathered at Scissortail Park on Friday, and I have the privilege to be here today to show you that proof that Oklahoma City does not condone settler colonialism and its genocidal tactics and stands with Palestine. Now is the time to stand with humanity and set a precedent, show the world that Oklahoma City does not support urinating on and torturing medical professionals by calling for the divestment of our $64 million Oklahoma tax dollars and a ceasefire in Palestine. Thank you.
That concludes citizens to be heard. We'll now go into executive session, and then we'll return to adjourn. We're at item 14, adjournment, and we are adjourned.